Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. Welcome at this meeting this morning. Can I maybe just find out whether we've got personnel from Stats SA that joined us? Nasipu?
Yes, Chairperson.
Are they here? Is the DDG on? I didn't see her name.
Yandiswa?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, thank you
Good
very
morning.
much. And good morning to you and welcome to this meeting. We're going to discuss this morning the Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 6. And there will be two presentations, one from the Department of Water and Sanitation that will go first, and then Stats SA. They will also make, on the same topic, make a presentation. You would see that you have received the two sets of minutes. We'll deal with that now. May I now ask that we observe a moment of silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Apologies. I received two apologies. I received the apology from the Minister and Deputy Minister Matlobo, and then Honorable Deputy Minister Sitole will lead the department in this discussion. May I please just once again say to both the department and Stats SA, in this case today, I will allow you a half an hour to make your presentation. Stats SA, it's your first time here. How it works with us is that you give a presentation, not a verbatim presentation. We have received your presentation. You highlight your presentation, and then members will ask questions, and you will immediately answer the members' questions. And if the member is not satisfied, there will be a follow-up question. We will allow 3 questions per member today and see whether we can get through. And if there is still time left, we'll go for a second round of questions. So it's not as if we ask all the questions and then you start to answer. Each member will ask questions. You will answer your questions. I just need to note that you take note that I write down the questions and I make sure that all the questions are answered. And if you can't answer the question, please inform us you can't answer the questions. You will have then 7 days to do that in writing. I hope you understand that. Any further apologies, Nosipo?
No, Chairperson, I didn't get any.
Okay, the minutes, we've already considered the minutes earlier this morning, and then we would go to the briefing. I then hand over to the Minister, Deputy Minister, for the briefing of the Department of Water and Sanitation. Over to you, Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, a very good morning to yourself and good morning to the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, the Portfolio Secretariat, as well as the colleagues at the DWS. Please note that, Chairperson, that the delegation from the representation of the DG is led by DDG Xolani Zwane, who is our DDG for Regulation, Compliance and Enforcement, with the presentation to be done by our Chief Engineer and SDG 6 Coordinator in DWS, Mr. Mark Bannister. Chairperson, just to indicate that we have been requested by the Portfolio Committee to come and brief the committee on the attainment of the SDG 6. And we want to emphasize just from the keyword, the attainment, which is defined as the action or fact of achieving a goal. And in order for us to be able to give the foundation to this action, we must first define the target gaps, which is what we have done clearly for each target in our presentation here today. This captured from the information purposes and will be touched on briefly by the presenter. However, the main part of the presentation, Chairperson, will focus on the actions taken thus far to address the SDG 6, as well as the planned actions going forward towards achieving the 2030 goals. It must be noted from the onset, Honorable Chairperson, that we will not be able to meet the 2030 goals by 2030, neither will the majority of the participating countries globally. We also want to note that this particular program is not a DWS program. However, the SDG 6 is a sector program coordinated by DWS for all stakeholders to deliver upon this. It is almost a case of we win together or we lose together, with the intention, of course, being definitely the former. Just a way of background, Chairperson, we know that the SDG 6 presentation will outline South Africa's status in ensuring access to clean water and sanitation for all by 2030. While the country has made strides in policy development and strategic planning, deep-rooted structural issues, especially poor infrastructure asset management, high non-revenue water, and widespread underperformance among water services authorities, has really posed a serious threat to achieving this particular
Order,
goal by
Chairperson,
2030.
order.
Sorry, Honorable Reddy, why are you interrupting the Minister?
Thank you. Sorry, Honorable Chairperson, no disrespect, but please ask the Deputy Minister to read a bit slowly. He's reading too fast and I'm unable to catch what he's saying. Please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We know the Deputy Minister, he speaks fast. Deputy Minister, please, can you maybe slow a bit down? Some members...
My ears are very cold. It's hearing very slowly.
Yeah, I think something else is also very slowly. But anyway, thank you, Honorable Reddy. Deputy Minister, would you please just slow down a bit? Thank you.
No, my apologies, Chairperson. I'm also very cold where I'm sitting. So, no, thanks so much. As I was saying, Chairperson, that we do have a significant number of deep-rooted structural issues that obviously infringe upon our ability to be able to achieve this particular SDG goal by 2030, and that, amongst others, is, of course, the widespread underperformance of our water services authorities, which are mainly municipalities. The country has shown, Chairperson, measurable progress in expanding access to water and sanitation services. However, we are still falling behind on 3 targets in particular, and that is namely access to safely managed water, access to safely managed sanitation, and water quality. Those are SDG 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3, respectively. The presentation that will be made by Mark Bannister will provide further details as to what the latest progress is in terms of those particular targets. The Department of Water and Sanitation, Chairperson, has led the development of critical national instruments such as the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan and the National Water Resource Strategy, which does provide an integrated framework to guide sector improvements. The department has also initiated the Minister's Water and Sanitation in Durban, which was held on the 27th and 28th of March, respectively, this year, which highlighted the 5 key points that we plan towards turning around the performance of our water services authorities, in particular, as one of the biggest hurdles that we are facing in achieving this particular SDG number 6. Commitments were made by all those who participated, particularly the stakeholders, which will be working together to accelerate progress and address the current challenges that we are facing. It is clear, Chairperson, that progress on the SDG 6 is being severely undermined by systematic failures at a municipal level. And chief amongst them, of course, is the poor performance of many of the WSAs, as I've indicated. These authorities are responsible, by and large, for water and sanitation service delivery, yet many of them, as we know, lack the capacity, the technical expertise, the financial discipline that is needed in order to be able to manage their mandates effectively. These, of course, are underscored also by our green, blue, and no drop reports. There is service backlogs, there is unreliable supply, and there is a deteriorating infrastructure that is a direct result of these institutional weaknesses. A major underlying contributor to poor service delivery, Honorable Chairperson, is the chronic neglect of infrastructure asset management across the sector, and we've seen this largely covered by mainstream media over the past couple of months. And many of the municipalities do not maintain accurate asset register or implement asset management plans. Preventative maintenance is often overlooked, or as we often say, operation and maintenance. And emergency repairs, they dominate the budgets. This short-term approach accelerates infrastructure decay, increases operational costs, and leads to frequent system failures. The result is evident in widespread water supply disruptions, sewer overflows, and health and environmental hazards, particularly affecting vulnerable and rural communities. The scale of infrastructure, Chairperson, is rarely reflected in South Africa's non-revenue water loss rate, which is at 47.4%, indicating significant losses due to leaks, theft, and inefficiencies. We can even talk about illegal connections as far as that is concerned. Meanwhile, water stress remains at a high 67%, exacerbated by both environmental factors and failing infrastructure systems. These challenges are especially acute in provinces like the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and Northwest, respectively, where climate variabilities and institutional weaknesses converge. In response, the responsible government Department of Water and Sanitation has prioritized cross-sectoral collaboration through initiatives like the Water Partnership Office, which lies in the DG's office, working with the Development Bank of Southern Africa and the South African Local Government Association in order to strengthen municipal capacity, mobilize financing, and engage in private sector. A renewed emphasis, Chairperson, is also being placed on monetary asset management planning and the ring-fencing of water revenues for fund repairs and upgrades. Based on the current state of the sector, South Africa is unlikely to accomplish the 2030 goals of SDG 6, as I've indicated. However, the department has shown leadership amongst other SDGs, initiatives, and creativity in leading the sector towards accelerated improvement, and has taken several steps to address the challenges directly by turning the identified gaps into tangible actions for the whole sector to be able to implement. The outcomes of the Minister's Water and Sanitation in Durban, Chairperson, and its 5-point plan are instrumental in this regard. Whilst there's still a lot of work to do globally, the United Nations has highlighted during its Water and Sanitation Conference back in 2023 that the world is halfway there, but nowhere near. South Africa has a long way to go, but we are moving along the right trajectory, and South Africa is fully committed to making sure that we're able to overcome any of these challenges in order to be able to deliver on the SDG 6 requirements. Chairperson, through you, please do allow me to then hand over to our Chief Engineer and SDG Coordinator, Mr. Mark Bannister, who has, since its inception back in 2016, has been at the forefront of this in order for him to take us through the presentation. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much indeed, Honourable Deputy Minister, and good morning to the Honourable Chair, Honourable ladies and gentlemen. Please tell me when you can see the slide.
You can just put it on slideshow.
Of course. Is that okay?
100%, thank you. You can continue.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for the opportunity. As mentioned, my name is Mark Bannister. I'm the Chief Engineer, Water Services, but also I've been coordinating the SDG 6 program since its inception back in 2016. In terms of the purpose that was given to us, the DM has already touched on that, but what I want to do is very briefly, within the next half an hour, just take you on a short journey, a journey of SDG 6 since it was initiated back in 2016, and just to highlight some of the activities and decisions that this department has made in order to implement the program effectively, with reference to the operational structure and the linkage to the master plan, which DM highlighted as well. Besides that, in terms of our brief, I'm going to talk a little bit about the interlinkages with the other 16 SDGs, since water and sanitation is basically central to all the SDGs. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the progress of each of the 8 targets, with a particular focus on those 3 which are not doing very well, as DM highlighted, 6, 1, 2, and 3. But then I want to focus on the actions and decisions being made going forward to show you how we're going to try and accelerate progress towards 2030. And even though we may not reach the goal in its entirety by 2030, I think we can make significant inroads, and I want to just highlight some of the actions that we've decided upon in that regard. So just to begin with, in terms of a little bit of background, you'll probably all remember the Millennium Development Goals, which ended in 2015. And following that, then the United Nations decided to embark on the SDG 6, which includes 17 SDGs. And what's different this time around was that water and sanitation previously was encapsulated within the Millennium Development Goals, but now it's got its own specific goal, which is SDG 6. And SDG 6 relates to the provision or the ensuring the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Stats SA was given the responsibility to coordinate the 17 SDGs in South Africa, and they've done an excellent job over the last 9 years to manage that coordination. But they gave the specific goal of SDG 6 naturally to the Department of Water and Sanitation to implement that. In total, we've got 169 targets and 247 indicators within the 17 SDGs. And although SDG 6 is specific to water and sanitation, I think it's central. Water in particular is central to all the other SDGs. Without water, without sanitation, the other SDGs will not be able to achieve their goals, in particular, obviously, on the water side. So it's key to the success of the SDG program, and we've taken that into account when we implement. We've made sure that the SDG 6 program is aligned with the African Union Agenda 2063 and also with the National Development Plan. And I think, as DM has highlighted, the program is a sector program, not a departmental program. We coordinate that. So it does require all stakeholders to deliver on their responsibility to be able to achieve the 2030 goal. So let me just begin by, maybe this is the engineer in me, but right at the beginning, together with the Honourable Moloko Matala, our acting DDG, we sat down together to decide how we were going to tackle this particular animal. And with the 17 SDGs in play and the 8 particular targets for SDG 6, we decided to break it down into a manageable structure, which basically, from an SDG 6 perspective, with the 8 targets that we had, we developed 8 target task teams with an expert leading each of those particular targets. And then as time went on, we realized there was a lot of cross-cutting issues which also needed to be applied to the program. And so we actually, over time, has created 8 cross-cutting task teams, which I'll touch on in a moment in a bit more detail. But because it is a sector program, what was really key was the fact that we involved the sector to implement the program nationwide. So we developed the Water and Sanitation Sector Leadership Group, which includes government and private sector, civil society, municipalities, mining sector, research institutions, etc. And we come together every quarter to meet and discuss progress and see what commitments can be made to actually try and address some of the challenges that we've highlighted in the targets. What we've done differently to other SDGs in South Africa is the fact that although the program is a monitoring program to monitor the various targets, we've taken it a step further, colleagues, such that we've actually developed a system that looks at the gaps and then develop interventions and projects and programs related to addressing those gaps. And we inform the National Water Resource Strategy and the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan to ensure that we get tangible projects that work towards addressing those gaps actually on the ground. And that's something which is quite unique to SDG 6 and which has been implemented with success over the past 9 years. In terms of some of the milestones, we had the midterm review after 7 years in 2023. And we've also been participating in the UN Water Conference in New York, and we've been participating in the Stats SA SDG country report, which I will talk about a little bit later on. Those colleagues are the 8 targets that we've been given. And as mentioned, each of those targets are headed by a topic expert. And that's one of the things that I really love about this program, not just because it can make a big difference on all these particular targets, but also because we've got some very dedicated, committed experts that have been involved since the beginning. So 6.1, just at a high level, looks at drinking water, led by Pumlok. Then we've got 6.2 on sanitation, led by Tabita Napakadi. Then you've got 6.3 on water quality, which is Tembi Masalela. 6.4, looking at water use efficiency, led by Kolani Khadebe. 6.5 on integrated water resource management, which is led by Patrick Malailo. And then 6.6 on water-related ecosystems, which is led by Lebohang Matala. And then 6.8 on international cooperation and capacity building, which is led by Mr. Malakwani. And then finally 6.B, which is participation of local communities, led by Becky and Bense. And I think the people that are involved all share the same kind of passion. So this is just a pictorial representation of the structure that we've developed right for the onset. And you can see that the 8 target task teams are supported by the 5 cross-cutting task teams, which feed into the whole process. But we also have our 9 regional SDG 6 champions that make sure that the messages and the actions and requirements feed into all the provinces of the country. And this working group meets every quarter, followed by a meeting with the Water and Sanitation Sector Leadership Group, so we can discuss the progress and the requirements going forward. Again, what makes SDG 6 different to the other SDGs is that if you look at this chart here, what we actually do is all the target task teams that meet on a regular basis with over 100 people involved countrywide, we develop a gap report every December. We're looking at the progress from the previous year to the following year, and then we turn those gaps into proposed interventions, projects, and programs, which then, for example, with the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan, Volume 3 has more than 5,000 actions that have to be implemented by the sector. That plan is central to the sector's business. And each year we have the opportunity to feed new projects and programs into the master plan to be implemented by the sector, which then close the gaps towards those particular targets. And then the following year we go and assess or monitor the progress of closing those gaps to see how well we're achieving and what kind of things we need to change. And then on the bottom of that picture there, similarly from the 17 SDGs, we have a similar process so that we can get the water and sanitation requirements of all the other 16 SDGs and develop a system which identifies the requirements and feeds that into the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan and the National Water Resource Strategy so that it can be implemented by the sector. I think the approach I've already touched on to some extent, but the thing that I want to take out of this slide is the 5 cross-cutting task teams in particular on the bottom. I've already mentioned that we can only achieve SDG 6 by the involvement of the sector. So the Water and Sanitation Sector Leadership Group, which meets every quarter, is key for that. And through that, we get commitments from all the different sector role players in terms of what they're going to do towards addressing SDG 6. And then we monitor the progress thereof. You've got sector support and coordination cross-cutting task team, which focuses on youth and gender and disability, something which is also a great passion of mine. Incidentally, I know you can't see from the video, but I'm also using a wheelchair, and something which I'm very passionate about driving, not just within the operations of the SDG 6 program, but I make sure that youth and gender and disability gets included within the whole implementation process. We then have research and innovation. And for example, research and innovation is coordinated through the Water Research Commission. Now, they've developed, implemented a couple of projects, one on climate change in particular, and the other one on, so that was linking it with the Paris Agreement of 2016, I think it was, and then also on the interlinkages with the other SDGs. And it's through that research that was completed that we translated that into a specific cross-cutting task team. So it didn't become a research document that sat on a shelf. It actually became an implementable tool through the cross-cutting task teams. And I'm going to just elaborate a little bit now on the interlinkage one in particular, since that was part of our brief. Because as mentioned and as supported through UNESCO, water is central to all the SDGs that are being implemented. So the research task team developed a research project on interlinkage across SDGs. And through that, we've got the cross-cutting task team now, which has developed a very comprehensive interlinkage tool that basically looks at the other SDGs and identifies the synergies and the trade-offs that exist between SDG 6 and their own specific SDG. And we've recently just got funding approved for a pilot to be implemented with focus specifically on 6.3, which is water quality, since that is one of those that require to accelerate. And then obviously the other 221 indicators of the other 16 SDGs. So the pilot is being implemented at the moment. We'll get results by the end of the year. And then we're looking for funding to expand that to the other 7 SDGs. The next slide just kind of highlights that pictorially. But I think what's important is with SDG 6.3 is the pilot in the middle there. It just highlights some of those synergies and trade-offs whereby, some of the SDGs are reliant on the success of others. So, for example, it's only through success of good water quality that we can achieve SDG 3, which relates to good health and well-being. Similarly with sustainable cities and communities, SDG 11, they have to be sustainable and clean to be able to ensure that we don't pollute our rivers and dams and we achieve our own goals. So there's a lot of interaction there, and we can help one another in that regard. Just touching on the progress, and again, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I want to get onto the actions. But the one thing to highlight here is that South Africa predominantly looks at basic levels of service when it comes to the provision of water supply and sanitation. But through the United Nations, their particular target is safely managed water supply. And it has different criteria that they look at. So the two results are not exactly the same. So basic level of service, we're looking at 89% currently, which is basically drinking water from an improved source, provided collection time is not more than 30 minutes. Where safely managed looks at other criteria as well in terms of the water being provided at the premises of the user. In particular, it also looks at water quality monitoring at the rural level, rural communities, and because of that, and also with the reliability side, then we're actually sitting at 64% on safely managed water supply compared to the 89%. But I think what's important to point out is that both these indicators are deficient because they do not capture whether water supply systems are functional or not. And if functionality was taken into account, then the proportion of the SA population that has access to safely managed water would be considerably less. The South African basic level of service is currently at, say, 89%. But then Department of Water is also implementing a 5-year reliability plan program, which shows that we're sitting at 68% reliability, and I think that corresponds very closely to the safely managed side. Again, different criteria, but it shows that we're looking at similar things with a comparable progress. Here, I just want to highlight that the Department of Water also monitors the reliability of water service, as mentioned, but that the deficit currently with safely managed is 36%, which we need to achieve within the next 5 years. And that's something which we need to accelerate progress in that regard. Basic level of water services only increased by 1% over the last 3 years, with a deficit of 11%. And approximately 30% of the infrastructure that we have for water supply is actually dysfunctional, as highlighted earlier by the DM, and we need to ensure that asset management is appropriately implemented to address that. I think when you look at the graph, it shows that we have actually gone down since 2017, where we sat at 69% down to 64% in 2023. And things like poor infrastructure asset management is one of those contributing factors. But in addition to that, we've had a population increase from 59 million since the beginning of the program up to 64 million in current time. And so we have a moving goalpost as well. So even though we are delivering water services throughout the country, but as the population grows, then obviously the progress doesn't look as progressive as perhaps it would be. At a provincial level, you can see there that when it comes to basic levels of service, the blue one, then areas such as Limpopo and KZN are falling behind the other provinces. When it comes to reliability, then Gauteng and Western Cape are up there at the higher level of reliability. But I think there you can see that from a provincial perspective, you can see where the issues are that we need to focus on to be able to address the backlogs that exist. From a sanitation perspective, it's a similar situation in terms of the two different definitions of sanitation. We've got the basic level of service, which looks at the infrastructure, and then we've got the safety managed, which looks also at fecal sludge management and the hand washing facilities. And at the moment, we're sitting at 70% safely managed compared to 83% on the basic level of service. Again, different criteria measuring different things, but basically painting a similar picture in terms of where the deficits are in the areas that we need to focus on. The graph again will show there has been slight progress over the years. Again, taking into account
Minister?
Yes?
My apology, you've got 10 minutes left.
No problem. I'm going to skip through these particular slides. Again, it shows from a provincial level there. Water quality, the other challenging one, where we have to halve the population of wastewater that is not lawfully discharged by 2030. And currently, wastewater discharges compliant with standards reduced from 52% to 28%. So we've got a big challenge when it comes to water quality, which we need to get on top of. And then also the amount of data which is submitted by the municipalities. If you'll allow me, Chair, I'm going to, the information is here.
Chairperson.
Honourable Reddy, my apology, Mr. Bannister. Honourable Reddy, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm not sure whether you are the administrator here because you cannot see my hand when it's raised. I'm just wondering, Chairperson, with the concurrence of the House, whether we can allow the presenter to continue with this presentation, because I'm just thinking that there are many people out there that are watching this broadcast, this meeting. And I think the information that's coming through is very, very vital. And I wouldn't want it to be sort of short-circuited, because I think the information is something that that's ordinary South Africans that are watching will be very beneficial to them. So I'm appealing, Chair, if we could allow the presenter to go beyond the time limit that he has, so that he could take the country into this very valuable information. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Reddy. I can maybe just say that the same presentation with the same information will be done by Stats SA as well. So what the Honourable Member has not indicated here, it will be done by Stats SA. And that will mean that this will be a comprehensive report by the department as well as Stats SA. Honourable Moore, we are eating into your question times now.
Yes, Chair, 100%. And I think that's the challenge here, is that there's really valuable information in this presentation. And obviously, I agree with the Honourable Reddy. This is very valuable information, but we have read it beforehand. There are 5 people watching the live stream. So, and whilst that may change in the future, the challenge is we need the time to question some of this, because whilst they are the 2 same presentations, there's quite a lot of difference between the stats reported in the 2 presentations. So I'd ask, even if we just we could give them another 10 minutes or something, but nothing more than that, Chair, because we do need to get to the questions. Thank you, Chair.
Let's continue with the work. Mr. Bannister, you can
Thank
continue.
you very much. Thank you, Chair. I think what I'm going to do is just go quickly over the rest of them. 6.3 is the one that we're falling behind on, just like 6.1 and 6.2. So with 6.3, this just highlights the proportion of bodies of water that comply with the water quality objectives. And you can see from here that in terms of river sites, dam sites, and groundwater sites, on the river sites, there's been an increase in the water bodies that comply with the water quality objectives, whereas the dams, for example, have gone down in terms of the water quality, and the groundwater has gone up. So the dams are the area of challenge at the moment. I think with those particular 3 are the key ones. But just to highlight 6.4 very quickly, because we do have a massive problem in terms of non-revenue water and leakage in the country, which we need to get on top of. But those particular indicators there look at the economic indicator of water and the productive use of water in the country, which has shown an increase over the years. But water stress is increasing hugely, and that's something which we need to get on top of. 6.4 also looks at the water balance per province, and you can see there that in terms of non-revenue water, we've got a massive problem in Free State. We've got a big problem in Northwest as well, and in Mpumalanga in particular. So that just highlights that. I know, as you mentioned, Stats SA will go into some of the detail as well of the indicators, but these next indicators, we know we're on top of them. So we're not too concerned in terms of achieving the requirements of the SDG 6 program. It's just 1, 2, and 3 in particular which are a challenge. So I want to focus on those, but at least the colleagues can look at the specific details, which I think goes into more information than Stats SA in terms of the particular indicators. But I think what's important now is to just go on to the challenges and the financing in particular of the SDGs, because colleagues, based on the drop results that we've got, the drop reports, blue drop, green drop, no drop, having assessed the declined state of local government, we know that with the challenging WSAs that we've got, we require 400 billion rand to deal with the backlogs and the 105 worst performing water service authorities. That was highlighted at the recent Indaba that Minister held. The current department is currently contributing around 12.5 billion annually through its various grants, which is insufficient to deal with the infrastructure challenge. In addition to that, we've commissioned a report with the World Bank and the DBSA recently, and we estimated that 131 billion rand per annum is required for the next 5 years to be able to just address the infrastructure requirements of SDG 6. So again, there's a massive funding gap that needs to be addressed. and the money is just not available at the moment, and South Africa will not meet the SDG 6 within those 5 years unless we can bridge the gaps that exist. So they emphasize the needs to water services authorities to minimize non-revenue water. We've got a national water leakage, or sorry, non-revenue water 47%, which is massive, and we need to fix those leaks so that we can reduce the demand for capital expenditure on infrastructure. So we must fix the leaks as a priority throughout the country. I think just to address these specific challenges, I've highlighted those 3 targets which we are behind on, and I've highlighted that the population increase is a contributing factor towards that. But we do have, as mentioned, 105 water service authorities which are performing very badly, and we need to improve that, which again, I'm going to talk about that, how we're going to do that in a moment. We've got a lot of aging infrastructure which needs to be turned around, and we've got poor project planning and implementation within the sector. Infrastructure asset management, including operation and maintenance, is weak, and something which we're focused on to try and turn that around. And then obviously with non-revenue water, the 47% that I've highlighted there has to be reduced. And 32% of that is actually contributed towards physical water leaks itself. So they need to be dealt with. But also, colleagues, we need to reduce our consumption. As a water shortage, water scarce country, we are using far more than what the global average is. We're using 218 litres per capita per day compared to the global average of 173 litres per capita per day. So we did it in Cape Town several years ago when there was a drought, and we reduced that consumption. We need to reduce that consumption nationally so that we don't waste the water that we've got. We then need improved technical and skilled staff within local government, and we need to improve the water quality, which relates to 6.3. In particular, 334 municipal wastewater treatment plants are identified to be in a critical state, and we just can't allow that to happen. And then one of the other challenges, particularly to SDG 6, is related to the other SDG targets. We were looking for the pilot to be extended in that regard. But colleagues, there's a lot that we have been doing over the years since we started. Through the gap reports that we've identified and the challenges that we knew had to be turned around, the Department of Water has created the National Water Resource Strategy 3 of the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan, which is all aligned with SDG 6, as mentioned earlier. The WSDPs, the Water and Sanitation Development Plans by the water service authorities, and the 5-year reliability plans. There's a huge amount of work going on in the background to try and turn those around and make the planning component better. The Water Service Authority performance, I'll touch on the next slide in a moment in terms of ministers in Daba to try and turn that around through the 5-point plan. And then we've got the National Groundwater Monitoring Programme, which has been initiated and implemented throughout the country. A host of different water conservation and demand management programs to reduce consumption and to reduce the leakage. This is complemented by the blue drop, the green drop, and no drop, which you remember was paused for some time and has now been re-established, which is a massive benefit to the process. So we know where the problems are. We can deal with those. We've got the Water Partnership Office with DBSA to encourage private-public participation. And then through the sanitation, I think you can see that we have been making improvement over the years. And to complement that, we've got the National Sanitation Integrated Plan. We've got the fecal sludge management strategy, which is being implemented to address the 6.2 requirements. And then we've got the latest project dashboard development, which has been initiated with the objective to have an electronic system that reflects all the information of projects in a dashboard application format. And then finally, the integrated monitoring and reporting system that will consider all water and sanitation projects to be implemented by other sector departments, because again, it's a team effort. We win and lose together. I think there's a host of projects that Many of you will have heard about the contributing towards closing the gaps of SDG 6. Not just to mention the phase 2 of the Lesotho Highlands water projects, which a lot of you will be aware of, and the Mkumazi, the Mokolo crocodile, etc. They're all there for you to read outside of the meeting, but there's a lot of work which is going on. But I just wanted to highlight the ministers in Durban, which happened in March this year, because all the water service authorities, municipalities came together at the Gallagher estate and unpacked all the problem areas that they're experiencing. This was leading on from the summit that happened last year. And there was a 5-point plan that was identified to be able to turn around the performance of municipalities. And that is the crux of delivering on SDG 6. If we can address these issues, fighting criminality and corruption, building partnerships, community engagement, enhancing technical and operational capacity, etc., then we're going to go a long, long way. And I think we're going to have a hockey stick effect so that towards 2030, we're going to see acceleration in all the progress we've got. I've only got 2 slides left. This is just to highlight in South Africa of the other 16 SDGs, how the Department of Water is doing against the other SDGs. The circle there just highlights Department of Water. You can see that we've got no red areas where in terms of data gathering, we are either progressing or we've stagnant to slow. But basically, when you look at the other SDGs, I think you can agree that we're doing better than the majority of them anyway, which is good. And then finally, Chair, in terms of the global perspective, which is important, South Africa stands amongst the countries who have reported on 10 and more SDG 6 indicators, which is the green areas. And in fact, South Africa has reported on all of the global indicators required of them. So we are ahead of the curve in that regard. And I think that reflects in terms of our standings globally. We're sitting at 115 out of 193 United Nations member states globally. But out of those, if you look at those in sub-Saharan Africa, we're sitting at number 3 out of 44, with Botswana and Ghana ahead of us. So I think on the international stage and the continental stage, we've been doing fairly well. But again, we need to do a lot better. We haven't got to 2030 yet. We've got all sorts of plans and ideas to accelerate and to work towards the goals. And even though we won't reach them in their entirety with 61263, we've got the commitment, we've got the dedicated people, and we've got the will and the ability to maximize our impact going forward. I thank you for the extra time, Chair. I hope that was helpful. I'm sure that Stats SA will fill in other gaps around the target progress. Back to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. Before I go to Stats SA, Deputy Minister, would you like to add something, or can I go to Stats SA?
We can proceed to Stats SA. Thank you so much for the indulgence, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Stats SA, can you maybe flight I see you have requested to be added to flight. Can you continue with your presentation, please? Also 30 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to honorable members, to the Deputy Minister, and to my colleagues. So we are from Stats SA. My name is Yandi Swampecheni, and I'm representing the Statistician General who could not be with us today. So on the outline of the presentation, we have the background. I'm not going to cover all of it because Mark has spoken to some of it. We'll also talk to the SDG 6 progress, and we will then talk to linkages with other goals and challenges and way forward. And when we talk to the background, Mark has covered the first point, that of how the 17 goals came about. And to date, South Africa has produced 3 SDG country reports. We had the baseline in 2017, we had the first country report in 2019, and we had the 2023 SDG country report. We are now in the process of preparing the 2025 report because we report every 2 years. We couldn't report during the time of COVID, but we report every 2 years. And this 2025 report will be published in 2025. So when you look at the data coverage in the reports that we have published and the one that we are still to publish, you will see that in 2017, we could only cover 63% of the indicators that we needed to cover. In 2019, this went slightly up to 64% on data coverage. And this is all the goals, not just SDG 6, which I'm still going to come to. And in 2023, our coverage was 72.3%. And 2025, the indications so far are that we're at 84.4%. The number may go up once we get more data as we finalize the report. So we thought we should just take you briefly into the process of developing and drafting the SDG report. We have what we call the integrated indicator framework, where we have the National Development Plan at the center, and we take all the indicators from the NDP and we have aligned them to Agenda 2063 that Mark spoke to, and we've also aligned them to SDG reporting. We are yet to align all of these other development frameworks. So what this helps us with, it is to identify the data gap. We know where we still have shortages of data, where we still need to get more data at more granular level, because most of the time, as we say, we have a data gap. You find that at lower levels, the data gap is even higher than what it is when you're reporting at national and provincial level. So when we're doing the SDG process, we usually have what we call an inception meeting. That is where we get all the stakeholders together. That will be civil society organizations, organs of state, private sector, development partners, where we sit around the table and look at what indicators do we have more data for, which we did not have before, what additional indicators we would like to include in the report. Once the inception is done, we then form what we call sectoral working groups, which I will talk to in the next slide. Then we report on the report. We draft the report, sorry. Then we have a validation workshop. In the validation workshop, that is where we look at what has been drafted in the report and see if it's in alignment with what is happening on the ground, because this is the only report from Stats SA that links policy and data together. Usually we say we have no taste buds where the numbers are concerned, but on this one, we have to link policy. We then have a National Coordination Committee that is chaired by the SG, and this committee is responsible for ratifying this report and saying that it is good to be published. But before it can get published, it has to appear in cabinet. Then we do the country report. Mark spoke to the VNR report. This report of SDGs is an input into the VNR report. And on the next slide, we now talk to the sectoral working group on Goal 6. Mark mentioned that DWS is the chair of this sectoral working group. And what they do is to gather data, they discuss the indicators, they see if they meet local needs, and they provide data for the indicators where we have data and ensure that the quality has been assured so that we report on data that has been quality assured. Now, when we move on, you will see that if you're going to look at the progress that has been made in this SDG Goal 6, we have 8 targets and 12 indicators. I know Mark said 11, but we have an additional indicator that then forms part of the report that we do, that we coordinate, which then takes us to 12 indicators. So we report on 10 indicators for SDGs, but then we have domesticated 2 indicators. So what we mean by this is that when we are doing domestication, we are ensuring that the indicators are adjusted to meet our own local situations. And we then take the indicator from SDGs and then we adjust it to meet our own local needs. Additional indicators, that's when we include when SDG indicators are not sufficient or applicable to explain the situation in the country. So that is how we deal with these indicators. And on the next slide, we then look at who are the main data providers. Now we are talking only Goal 6. Main data provider for Goal 6 is Department of Water and Sanitation. They provide for 8 indicators using those reports on the site. Stats SA, we use what we call the General Household Survey, and we report on 3 indicators, and the one on ODAs, that is from the National Treasury. Now, once we have done this, as I said, I'm going to focus mostly on what Stats SA has contributes to this report. I'll talk to access to drinking water and sanitation services. We have our baseline being 2015, and you will see that for this indicator of the proportion of the population using improved drinking water service, the proportion of the population using improved drinking water has declined slightly from 87.5% in 2015 to 85.1% in 2024. And factors, as Mark mentioned, include growth in population and a fast rate of urbanization. And how we define this: improved drinking water is defined as population who uses piped tap water in their dwellings, in their yards, from a neighbor's tap, or from a public or communal tap. So the numbers are as they are on the slide from 2015 to 2024. Now, looking at 2024 alone, the proportion of the population using improved drinking water was highest in Western Cape at 99.1% and Gauteng at 98.3% and lowest in Limpopo, as you can see, at 59.1%. And this was followed by the Eastern Cape, that was sitting at 64%. Now, when you look at the levels, the actual numbers of people on the next slide that have access or no access to limited access to drinking water, that's improved. The number of the population without access to improved drinking water exceeded 2 million in KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, and the Eastern Cape. You will see that KwaZulu-Natal is sitting at 2.6 million, a number of people without access to improved drinking water, which means they use other water that is not improved. And the total number, if you can go back, the total number of the population that nationally that did not have access to improved drinking water is sitting at 9.4 million persons of the 63 million people we had in 2024, according to our own immediate population estimates. And on the next slide, we then look at that's on the proportion of the population using improved sanitation services. And the country has made some progress in providing access to improved sanitation from 80% in 2015 to about 82.7% in 2024. We define improved sanitation services as access to a flush toilet connected to a public storage system or a septic or conservancy tank, or bucket flush toilet connected to a septic tank or a seepage pit or a pit latrine with ventilation pipe. That is defined as improved sanitation. And when you look at only 2024, we will see that the proportion of the population with access to improved sanitation was highest in Western Cape at 98%, followed by Gauteng at 92.9%, while it was lowest in Limpopo and at 59.5%, and Mpumalanga was at 64.9%. So when you look at this, you can see the disparities between provinces. And there's a note there that the improvement in the Eastern Cape was due to the installation of pit latrine toilets with ventilation pipes. So it's not that Eastern Cape had more flush toilets, but because the definition includes pit latrines with ventilation pipes, so that's why the numbers for the Eastern Cape looked like they were better. When we go to the number of people without access to improved sanitation, this number exceeded 2.5 million in KwaZulu-Natal, which was sitting at 2.8 million, Limpopo at 2.5 million. Nationally, approximately 11 million persons did not have access to improved sanitation. When we look at the next slide, where we now look at the indicator on the percentage of households that clean their hands after using the toilet by methods that they normally use, you will see that individuals and households who wash hands with soap and water increased from 43.6% in 2019 to 61.4% in 2020. This was during the COVID period. after which it declined to 53.7% by 2024. But when you look at those who do not clean hands, the number dropped from 3.7% in 2019 to 1% in 2024. Now, when we dissect 2024 by province on the next slide, we will see that individuals in households who merely rinse their hands with water was most common in Limpopo at 54.9%, and KwaZulu-Natal 52.5%, while those who wash their hands with soap and water, it was most common in Northern Cape at 71.6% and the Western Cape at 69.9%. Now, on the next slide, we then look at, Mark has already covered this, waste treatment and water bodies. I'm not going to talk much about it, except to just read the rider there, that the proportion of bodies of water that comply to South African water quality objectives increased for rivers and groundwater from 2017 to 2023. Can go to the next slide. And the current water use efficiency, there's a slight decline in 2020, which was attributed to the COVID-19, which resulted in less economic activities and an increase in water for hygiene purposes. But here on the next slide, then we'll see that next slide, sorry. The degree of integrated water resource management in South Africa showed positive growth from 2017 to 2021. And in 2022 and 2023, there was a decline to 58% for both years. You will see, honorable members and chairperson, that these are numbers from the department that we use in the country reporting on SDGs. On the next slide, we then see the proportion of transboundary basin areas within operational arrangement for water cooperation in South Africa that was reported at 100% for 2017 and 2018. And if you move to the next slide, because Mark covered all the slides, given that they are the data source, then we look at the spatial extent of water-related ecosystems in South Africa remained relatively constant as a percentage of total land area from 2018 to 2024, showing minimal to no increase. And we move on to the next one. Then we have the water level stress, which was at 41.4%, which increased to 67 in 2015, which increased to 67.6% in 2022. But if you can notice the line, the dotted line, because in 2015 we were sitting at 41.4%, but then there was a change in methodology. So the numbers then changed because we adopted the FAO, which is the Food and Agricultural Organization methodology, to compute this indicator. So that's why there's that break-in series between 2015 and 2017. On the next one, the groundwater change, Mark covered this. We can go to the next one, Silly. And performance of local community involvement in improving water and sanitation management. We can see it shows positive results in most categories, except for catchment management forums and transformation of irrigation boards. So this is all data that comes from the department that we use. Now, when we link SDG 6 to other goals, Mark has covered this, but I'll just go briefly into what we have done. On the next slide, you will see that this goal 6 links to basic services under goal 1. Goal 1 is end poverty in all its form everywhere. So we have an indicator there for basic drinking water and basic sanitation services. So this needs a linkage to goal 6. And to prevent on goal 3, which is on health, prevent infectious diseases, households should at least use basic sanitation facilities. SDG 4 on education. Then we give some numbers there that in 2022, 80.7% of the schools had access to basic water and 86.8% of schools had sanitation and toilet facilities. Then when you move on, you'll see that you also have a link to gender equality, because we know that safe sanitation services empower women and girls, and they increase their participation in education and the workforce. Of course, goal 8 on economic growth, we need water, and goal 10 on reduced inequality, goal 6 is important. Then we go to the next slide. And we will see that we also need water for sustainable cities on SDG 11. We need goal 6 can be linked to climate action and in SDG 13, as well as to life on land. Now I'm going to just illustrate how this is done when we are linking. In 2016, we had 474,000 deaths that were recorded from the report on mortality and causes of deaths. And of those deaths, 8,272 came from unsafe water, sanitation, and lack of hygiene. This number declined slightly to 7,524 in 2021. And the total in 2021 of deaths that were recorded, remember that was the time of COVID, the total set at 613,000, almost 614,000. So of those, 7,524 were attributable to unsafe water, sanitation, and lack of hygiene. So let's go to the next slide. Now we're just talking to our challenges, which Mark has already covered some of them. And the biggest one for us as people who do measurement is unavailability of disaggregated data. Because with the data we have, we are unable to zoom to place name level and say in East London, this is the problem. We can go up to municipal level if we are using the census data, but going lower down than that is a bit of a challenge. Inadequate maintenance of sanitation systems, Mark has spoken to this. Water quality, he has spoken to this. But our last challenge is that the effects of population growth, fast rate of urbanization, migration is putting a strain on the existing bulk sanitation infrastructure. With that, Chairperson, this is my last slide. I am not here alone. I am here with the Acting DDG for Population and Social Statistics, Mr. Solimolai. I am here with the Chief Director responsible for coordinating the SDG report, Ms. Noni Manyati. And I'm here with the Chief Director from the Office of the SG, Ms. Celia de Klerk, who is responsible for strategy and organizational development. I thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. And they will also then assist you in answering the questions. Before I go to Honourable Reddy, I just would like to know from the Deputy Minister whether he would like to add something before we go to the committee to do their oversight role in asking questions. Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, thank you very much indeed. Let me thank our colleagues at STSA for their presentation that clearly complements the presentation that has been made by Minister. Without wasting the committee's time, let us just get through to the questions, Chair. You'll just indicate whether we will take the questions per presentation or whether we will have a combination. Thank you.
No, we'll have a combination, and I think because it is the same questions or the same presentation, we will allow both the department and Stats SA to answer on the question. So members could just post their question, and I will allow the department, yourself, Deputy Minister, and Stats SA to answer those questions. I've got at the moment 3 hands up. Honourable Reddy first, then Honourable Ditebe, and then Honourable Kumalo. Honourable Reddy, it's your time now to show the people that looking at the streaming how we do our oversight role, and thank you for asking only 3 questions. We can go for a second round. Thank you, Honourable Reddy. You're welcome to start.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Let me just firstly thank the presenters, both from the department and Stats SA. But I want to say that what they present to us is really a very bleak outlook for the country. And much of what has been said is something that we in the opposition have been regularly stating: issues of infrastructure collapse, issues of water losses, non-revenue water, all of these is not something new. But what is alarming is the fact that in terms of the SDG targets, we are really way behind. I'm going to pose my questions to the Deputy Minister because, Honourable Chairperson, you know, the Deputy Minister has the option to come to our meetings and hand over presentations to the presenters. But he opted to give a summary. So I would assume that he had gone through the presentations. So he then will take responsibility as the executive. As members of parliament, we are here to hold the executive accountable. So my questions will be directed to him, and I would like him to answer them. The first one, Honorable Chairperson, is the fact that the department requires 131 billion rands annually to meet the SDG 6 targets. And this was confirmed also by Stats SA. My major concern is that I don't believe that this is a true reflection of the lived realities on the ground, because much of the information that we have comes from municipalities. And I note in the report that not all municipalities have in fact supplied the information that is what has culminated in the presentation. So the department requires 131 billion rands, but has access to only 12.5 billion rands per year. My question to you, Deputy Minister, is what concrete steps have been taken to reprioritize funding? We're going to be dealing with the issue of the department's budget shortly, and this will be critical in that budget, whether we're going to be adding a few billions, only to find that it's not making any dent at all. So what steps have you taken to reprioritize funding and to eliminate wasteful expenditure, and to hold the WSAs responsible for the 400 billion rands infrastructure backlog and the 47% water loss, which really, Honorable Chairperson, amounts to 9.9 billion rands annually? So that's my first question, Chairperson. The second relates to the collapse of wastewater treatment and environmental risk. You see, this is an area of serious concern to all of us, and it is the current state of our wastewater plants. And if you look at the reports, they suggest that wastewater discharge has plummeted from 52% to now 28% between 2017 and 2021, and that 334 wastewater treatment works are in a critical condition. You know what this means? It means that our waste is actually going directly into rivers and the sea. And where I come from in eThekwini, we know that this is a daily issue, because constantly E. coli levels are being measured in the sea, and the E. coli levels are proving that many times beaches have to be closed. So it's clearly because waste treatment plants are collapsing. So what has the department done to enforce legal directives? Because clearly this is criminal on the part of municipalities, but the department has the responsibility to enforce legal directives. Because these collapsing waste treatment plants, what they're doing is they're polluting our rivers, they're polluting groundwater, and they are affecting our communities adversely. Chairperson, my final question is regarding the discrepancy between reported access and actual reliability. You know, while 89% of South Africans are reported to have access to water, only 68%, according to the reports, experience reliable water supply. So how does the department justify this misleading data? And why has basic water service growth been a mere 1% over the past 3 years, despite billions being allocated annually? So we need to then look at the impact of the money that we are spending in the water department, and whether it is achieving a desired outcome. So these questions are directed to the Deputy Minister. We're holding the executive accountable, and he needs to respond. I thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. You've been put on the spot. Can you answer these questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you to Honorable Reddy. Just to mention that, Honorable Reddy, we also provide oversight over the department. And one of the reasons why we bring officials to these meetings is so that on technical questions, they may be able to be at the forefront of answering those on behalf of the department and the executive authority. Be that as it may, I think it is important that we do also take responsibility and account on quite a number of these issues. Chairperson, let me just start perhaps with the second last question that relates to the collapse of wastewater treatment works. Deputy Director General Xolani Zwane is in the meeting. He is our DDG for Regulation, Compliance and Enforcement. And through you, Chairperson, I would like for him to respond comprehensively to this question, although it is something that the Minister has delegated to me and something that I've been driving over the past 10 months or so. But just to make mention of the fact that, Honorable Reddy, the reality that we find ourselves in and the facts that are born out of the Green Drop report, particularly in the context of your question around wastewater treatment works, with the example that you've made of eThekwini, where beaches need to close down, affecting local economic development, tourism, and so forth and so on. That is largely because of the lack of operation and maintenance and investment that has been made by WSAs into their infrastructure, as of course already presented by both the presentation of the department as well as Stats SA. We have to be able to get to a point, Honorable Reddy, where we must make a decision to say, because the Constitution gives the responsibility of the functions of the delivery of water and sanitation services to WSAs, at what point do we then begin to hold the National Department of Water and Sanitation accountable when it has, in actual fact, intervened in many of these municipalities across the country through its Section 63 intervention of the Water Services Act? Chairperson, through you, I'd like to just give to DDG Zwane to just answer Honorable Reddy's question on the issues of regulation, compliance, and enforcement, and the actions that we are taking as a department in addressing those particular issues through our notices and directives.
Can continue.
Mr. Zwane?
Okay, thank you, Deputy Minister. Good morning, Chairperson and committee members. Just to follow up on what DM has reported already, through our Green Drop report, we have identified the worst performing municipalities, particularly where we identified about 334 critical wastewater treatment works. But as we have indicated previously, there is a limit to what the department can do from the national oversight point of view. We have developed norms and standards which have been gazetted last week, which specify the minimum requirement for the municipalities that they need to comply with. In addition to that, we are empowered by the current National Water Act in terms of Section 19 and 20, where we are able to take action against the polluters. The first action that we take once we have identified or we have a reported a case of pollution, we give the alleged polluter a notice to respond to the department to identify the issues, how they will be rectifying the issues, whether it is spillage or any other non-compliance. We give them 7 to 14 days to respond to that. And if we are not satisfied with the response that they provided, we then move to the next level where we issue now a directive instructing them to address the non-compliance. And if they're still not yielding positive results, we then move to the other enforcement, like making criminal charges. But we have seen that alone, it doesn't help, it doesn't resolve the situation on the ground. We have taken 5 municipalities to court where the court has ruled in our favor, and they have been forced to then rectify the issues. But it's not yielding the desired results. And one of the initiatives that we've taken is to make the amendments to the Water Services Act, where now we are looking towards what kind of model that they can be adopted at municipal level. For example, the introduction of the licensing for water services providers, where we can be able then to make sure that at municipal level, this function, either water services supply or water sanitation management, it is ring-fenced to make sure that the municipalities, if they receive the grants are utilized for the function of addressing wastewater treatment works as also the water services treatment works. I'm not sure if DM I've covered the question adequately.
Thank you so much, DDG Zwane. Thank you so much, Chairperson. I think that's adequate. If there's any additional information that Honorable Reddy might want specifically on this question, we're prepared to write a comprehensive response to him and outline, of course, some of those court cases that the court has ruled in our favor, including one municipality in Mpumalanga named Dipalese. The biggest challenge here in Chairperson is that even when a municipality is fined 250 million rands, because the municipality is a juristic person, it is the taxpayers of that municipality that now must have pay that particular fund or address the issues as would have been ruled by the court. So we had a conversation as a department to say, at what point can we get to a position where once a municipality is found guilty and they are requested to pay some penalties, that money actually then comes to us as a Department of Water and Sanitation, and that we become then the department that then implements those particular corrective action plans. Because at this point in time, the court does rule, but then the challenges persist. As DDG Zwane says, even though we take these particular civil and criminal charges against municipalities, the reality is that it doesn't stop the pollution. So we have to be able to make sure that we amend the National Water Act so that we include personal liability to municipal managers, directors, and even mayors, so that they themselves must be at the forefront of then having to pay those particular penalties as the accounting officers and political heads, respectively. The other questions that Honorable Reddy has asked, whether it's with respect to the elimination of wasteful expenditure, stopping non-revenue water, and of course, the information that is, of course, based on the presentations is the information that we get from WSAs, and as well as the issue of reprioritization. These are responses, Honorable Reddy, because you would have attended also then the Water and Sanitation in Daba, and you would have also seen, heard the President elevate water to #1 priority, as well as the Minister of Finance that has spoken about the allocation that will be given to the Department of Water and Sanitation or for infrastructure specific to water and sanitation in order to be able to address these issues. But important to note, Honorable Reddy, is that the amendments that are being made to the Water Services Act, if we look at them in the context of what the department is doing in its intervention in the municipality of Enfuleni in terms of the introduction of the special purpose vehicle, where Rand Water through a registered company will then take over the running of the water services management of that particular municipality, is something that the department is at the forefront of doing as part of those 5 steps that we've adopted at the Water and Sanitation in Daba in order to specifically address these issues of underperformance, the issues of budgets, the issues of wasteful expenditure, and so forth and so on. This does allow us as a department to be able to use the assessments from the Blue Drop, No Drop, and Green Drop report to be able to mandate and require WSAs to appoint licensed water services providers that will be able to then fundamentally and otherwise take over the water services operations of WSAs, and making sure that we insist on the ring-fencing as is going to be done by National Treasury with metropolitan municipalities, so that there is a win-win in as far as that is concerned, and that we do not have to necessarily rely on failed WSAs in as far as the current state of water and sanitation crisis, as it were, in the country is concerned. And so I do think that it is important that we go back and reconfirm the outcomes of the water and sanitation in Daba as is part of addressing this particular issue of budgets, reprioritization, and so forth and so on. Thank you, Chairperson.
Deputy Minister, yeah, I will give to Honorable Reddy now, but I don't think the questions has been answered sufficiently Firstly, in your view and department's view, how are you going to deal with the shortfall? You've got 12.5 billion, you need 131 billion. Surely the department must have a plan how they're going to address the shortfall. Is it via getting private partnership in? That is the first thing. The second thing is, it is wrong for a court to take a decision, and I know that it's not your view that the court must take a decision on that. But if a fine is 250,000 or 250 million rand, at the end of the day, it's the ratepayers that needs to pay it. I want to know, when are people going to go to court? And when are you going to lock up municipal managers and mayors? Because that's the only way we're going to stop this. Every time when there's a fine, either they pay it, the department back off because the ratepayers is going to pay it. So I would like you to concentrate on the shortfall. Before Honourable Reddy, I will give you the opportunity now. But I want to agree with Honourable Reddy is we hear year after year, and now it's my 11th year I hear the shortfall, but there's no plan on the table how you're going to address the shortfall. And how, Minister, you are responsible for pollution. 82% of this country's rivers already been polluted. If we don't going to lock up, whether it's industry or agriculture or municipalities, if you don't lock up people, nobody's going to learn a lesson out of that. As soon as you start to lock up a person, take their pension, like the department is doing with officials, then you will start to change this thing. Honourable Reddy, I don't know whether you would like to add before the minister answer, but I really think that is important questions that you've asked.
Yes, Honourable Chairperson, I want to really bring you a membership form for my party, and I'd like you to sign that when I see you again, because you really articulated most of what I wanted to say. The fact of the matter is that these become just talk shops. The reality is that the department needs 131 billion rands. It only gets 12.5 billion. That's not going to ease the problem at all. What we want to see is the Deputy Minister stated that there has been Section 63 interventions. I was going to ask him how many and how effective, but I already know the answer. There's been so few, and they've been not effective at all, these notices. In fact, it's done absolutely nothing. And I'll tell you what is the reason. The reason is that when you look at municipalities that are run by a particular party, and the leadership of this youth department here politically is led by the same party, you then find that politics is at play. They don't want to reprimand their own members and comrades. That's the reality here. What we need is we need a few mayors arrested. I remember having a discussion with one of the deputy ministers who said that the department can initiate criminal charges against a mayor. I want to see a mayor being put behind a police van and taken into the cells. That's number one. And when the department does that, they must come and report that to us. The second thing they need to report is a mayor's salary is now frozen because they need to start paying. The problem is that when it comes to legal challenges with municipalities, these politicians don't care a damn because it's not their own money that's involved. They're using ratepayers' money. They challenge the department. They go to court and they lose. They lose in court in cases where they stand no chance. So I also have not had a response, Chairperson, to the fact that in spite of we spending billions, only a mere 1%, right, of basic water services growth has been recorded in the past 3 years after spending billions. So now we are told that Mr. Ramaphosa and the finance minister has now prioritized water as number one, so that there'll be more funding. I am telling you that unless we get to the rot in this department of the way they're spending money, and to ensure that they spread the butter evenly, effectively, and this is done in an expert way, we are going to come back next year and hear the same story, irrespective of how much of money we put into this department. Because a small illustration will clearly explain what I'm trying to say. It's a bucket, and the bucket in this department has got big holes in them. It doesn't matter how much of water you put into this bucket, that bucket is never going to get full. What we need to do is start to close the holes in the bucket. And the department is not doing that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, thank you very much to yourself, and thank you to Honorable Reddy. Just to then answer the first question in terms of what the department is going to do in as far as shortfalls are concerned, I think both presentations from the department as well as STSA, what they speak about is that there is a significant collapse in terms of WSAs, which has necessitated the department to amend the Water Services Act in order to introduce a licensing model for WSPs that will then take over the running of water services for WSAs. The reason for that, Honorable Chairperson, is that once you professionalize water and sanitation sector, you are likely to then get people who are more interested in terms of investing in that particular sector. And I think that's probably one of the biggest, the agreement is that the state itself will not be able to cover that particular shortfall, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Reddy. That is why it is so important and fundamentally significant that we refer to public-private partnerships that will be able to enhance and cover the shortfalls where they exist, through our Water Partnership Office that is in the DG's office, as we would have seen on the presentation, working together with TBSA as well as other stakeholders. And I think that is the kind of partnership that we are looking at in order to be able to address the issue of, one, the professionalization of the sector in order to be able to attract investors, in order to be able to deal with the issues of the shortfall or the gaps that would then exist in as far as that is concerned. I think it's going to be important that we do so. Chairperson, it is a fact that private companies or other people are not prepared to give municipalities money purely on the basis of the collapse that we've so often spoken about, that Honorable Reddy himself also then emphasized. So once we professionalize the sector, and as far as a special purpose vehicle is concerned, and as far as a licensing model is concerned for a WSP, which will then be encouraged by the outcome of the Green Drop, Blue Drop report and No Drop report, that will be able to allow us as a department to then be able to address the issue of the shortfall, because we've got more private sector involvement in the sector in making sure that we're able to address that particular issue accordingly. Honorable Chairperson, that is why I had mentioned that we are making amendments to the National Water Act in order to introduce personal liability to mayors, MMs, and other senior directors in municipalities. Because you're quite correct, until such time that those who lead in municipalities do not take personal responsibility and accountability for the collapse of their infrastructure that is leading to the pollution of our water resources, we will not be able to be in a position where we are able to talk water security and whether we're able to talk the end of the value chain, that is water that comes out of the taps. One of the biggest obsessions that we've had over the past 10 months as a department is specifically on addressing the issues of water pollution. I've said in this forum on many occasions that we underestimate the level of crisis that pollution is in the country. Municipalities in Gauteng combined, as per the article that was published by Professor Turton in April this year, indicated that municipalities in Gauteng combined discharge 1,500 million liters of raw sewage into our water resources. All of those nutrients, all of that waste effectively goes into different water resources, whether it's Just K, whether it's ANOPS, but by and large, even in your own constituency, Chairperson, or in Madibeng, where the Hartebeespoort Dam is deeply polluted because of the discharge that is coming upstream from those particular municipalities, with Falkop Dam having 100% coverage of water hyacinths and other alien invasive species. These are the realities that we live by, and I agree wholeheartedly with yourself and Honorable Reddy that it is time that we actually take action against mayors and municipal managers, but we can only do that with amendments to national legislation that empowers us as a department to be able to do so. So it is, of course, a concern And I do think that it is going to be fundamentally important that we expedite the particular legislation. Honorable Reddy, one of the biggest challenges that I've witnessed over the past 10 months is the delay in projects that are actually supposed to increase the access that you refer to. Many of them have been unlocked. As per the presentation from DWS, you would have seen that Mr. Bannister would have had that slide up on the mega projects that have been unlocked by the department, and many of them that are still ongoing. It is a crisis. It is a situation that is unacceptable. And that is why I'm saying once we professionalize the sector and we introduce that licensing model for WSPs, and we have a body that is able to undertake the operation and maintenance of the infrastructure, all that investment that will be able to come through. And I think that we will then begin to move the needle towards the right direction, because yes, it's unacceptable to spend billions of rands, but to not actually see where it goes. And that is largely because of some of the infrastructure projects that have been blocked for a long time, that we've also unblocked as the department, as per the presentation that we've made now today, as well as many other presentations that the department has made to the portfolio committee. I think that is the best that I can be able to deposit at this point, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mr. Bannister's hand is up. Would you like to add something, Mr. Bannister?
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. And I think the responses from DM and DDG are well supported. The only thing I just wanted to add in particular, with regards to the 1% increase, which does look not good in terms of the progress in that regard. But as highlighted, I just wanted to mention that again, the population over the duration of SDG has increased by 5 million people, from 59 million to 64. And the progress that was reflected in this slide doesn't take this into account. So in effect, we have to also consider that those individuals have been provided with water and sanitation services. So I did highlight that on the slides. But also in terms of the money which is required, I mean, absolutely, we need to find ways to address the shortfall. And number one is to reduce the water leakage so that we can save the amount of money which is being paid for and treated and goes back into the ground again. So we need to improve that. And there's a lot of different initiatives which are being implemented to deal with that. And then I think as came out in the Indaba, by improving the performance of the water service authorities, then you can improve their efficiency, both in their operational costs, but also in terms of the implementation costs as well, so that we have a more effective, more higher performance WSAs. But we also have to look at increasing the tariffs and looking at extra funding into the sector or national fiscus as well. But ultimately, if we want to achieve the SDGs, we have to find the shortfall of money which is existing at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister, I think this kind of discussion, robust discussion, we will have to have in the near future, because it is a huge concern that has been raised and that is bothering members of this committee. We won't dwell on this, otherwise we take the focus away of why we are here. I'm now going to ask Honourable Ditebe to ask his questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to you, the Deputy Minister, the delegation from the department, colleagues, Stats SA. Chairperson, just a few things here for my own clarity and those perhaps that may be a little concerned that we might be talking about one thing, thinking it means the same thing, while it may not necessarily be so. And I want to go back to the question that Honourable Reddy asked about the numbers released by Stats SA with regards to the number of households that have piped water as against water reliability. And I think SDGs gave us those numbers as well. My understanding, Chairperson, is that I'll make an example with myself. I talk about my own municipality, Machabeng, all the time. Because of the more than 7 billion rand that Machabeng owes to Val Central, Val Central has since approached the minister to say they would like to restrict water, and they've been given that go ahead. That means, in as much as I pay my services religiously and many other people in the municipality, we are nonetheless affected by unreliable water supply. So this is different from not having piped water. As and when water is available, it is reticulated to our households through the reticulation network, or the pipes that the municipality has within its jurisdiction. So I thought perhaps if the Deputy Minister could comment on that, that I thought that there was some misunderstanding in terms of the numbers given by SDGs as far as water reliability and number of households with piped water. So that's the first thing. The other, Chairperson, is with regards to what Honorable Reddy and the Deputy Minister certainly and yourself referred to, and that is the pollution of our water sources. Chairperson, yesterday I took a video of the direct spillage of effluent into the Tigwe River in Virginia, and immediately sent it to the provincial head of DWS, Dr. Ndidi, who this morning called and confirmed that they are working on the matter. But while indeed, Deputy Minister, in terms of the National Water Act, we may want to amend the legislation so that it has stricter penalties. I think if, by and large, and I'm not saying that is not important, we deepen the awareness on the part of communities so that they can bring pressure to bear on the water service authorities. That will also augment what you intend or you contemplate in the proposed amendment to the principal legislation. I'm just a believer, a strong believer in active citizenry, and our constitutional order actually provides for citizens to be actively involved, because as you would have seen with the report of SSA, the number of deaths that occur as a result of exposure to unclean sanitation, unclean water, and sanitation that is not hygienic, healthy, etc. Those numbers are quite substantial, and we ought to not be having deaths occurring from that, when in fact we can avoid it. Chairperson, the other point, indeed, the 400 billion rand that is required to fix the infrastructure of the 105 critical municipalities in terms of their wastewater treatment plants. I just want to remind the committee that we supported the department last year when the department, through the minister, approached the committee to say they would like to have a portion of the equitable share withheld from municipalities that are huge defaulters and not paying their dues to the water boards. With July coming very close, we just need to remind the department that those municipalities that ought to have a portion of their equitable share ceded to the water boards, we must go ahead with that. The DG, of course, in one of our meetings indicated that there were some errors and National Treasury did not do what it was supposed to do. So the other one, Chairperson, on the pollution issue is If you take the Department of Employment and Labor, and if you take, for example, employers that are not, paying over or, yes, that are not paying over the UIF contributions of employees, there will, once such an employer offense, they will sort the employee out and then chase the employer. Why not do the same with municipalities? With this video that I took of raw sewage that is discharging into the Tigwe River, when I looked at what the situation is like or was like there, it is quite easy for Val Central, for example, to fix that problem and demand that the municipality settle the bill. The benefit obviously being that we're not going to have a long-term destruction of the biodiversity of our water sources, as the Deputy Minister has said. The last one, Chairperson, it would seem to me that one of the ways, while indeed we support the withholding of a portion of the equitable share to municipalities, from municipalities so that it can be paid over to the water boards, I think the whole idea of the special purpose vehicle, such as the one we have in Mfuleni, and with the Water Services Act amendment, etc., it seems to me that we will go some way in mitigating the effect of this huge deficit of 400 billion rand that is required to fix the critical stage of the wastewater treatment plants in water service authorities. If we start investing in that infrastructure through SPVs, because I think it will work better. They will still hold on to their assets, but besides, the proceeds from that will be ring-fenced, and it will have its own assets and liabilities. And while this will be like pooled resources by various water service authorities. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, and thank you to Honorable Dithebe for the comments. Through you, Chairperson, I'd like Mr. Bannister and our colleagues at StatsSA to then just address the issue of access and reliability and what that then means in as far as Honorable Dithebe's concern is concerned. Mr. Bannister?
Thank you very much indeed, DM, and thank you, Honourable Dithebe, as well for the questions. Yeah, I mean, there is that distinction between the provision of or access to water and the unreliable water supply which is being experienced, and a lot of that is down to, again, poor infrastructure asset management being applied by the water service authorities in many situations. The science behind infrastructure asset management is just not applied, such that the asset registers that they're supposed to keep updated are not done so, and they lack sufficient information to be able to manage their assets effectively. And quite often when it comes to maintenance activities, because of the lack of resources and funding available to the municipality, the maintenance will be reactive rather than planned by the municipality. So they'll wait for things to break before they go in and fix. And, we all know what we do with our vehicles, and we take it in for regular services because we don't want them to collapse, but that's not always the case within the water service authorities. So there has been a concerted effort to try and address that, and one of the interventions is the 5-year reliability plans, which have been rolled out over the last couple of years to identify the critical areas why WSAs are underperforming with regards to infrastructure asset management. And where they don't have an infrastructure asset management plan, we've been rolling out an updated guideline document as to how to develop such infrastructure asset management plans, because as the old saying goes, you can't manage what you don't know. And as a result of that, a lot of the infrastructure under the mandate of the WSAs has been collapsing. Quite often they have a 20-year design life, and the pipes can be in there for 25 or 30 years, and then you start patching them up, and as soon as you patch them up, then the increased pressure goes and makes the other parts of the pipe leak, etc. So again, coming back to SDG 6, safely managed water. Again, we highlighted that the figures don't take into account. I'm just looking for the words I used. That don't take into account issues of functionality. It's not taken into account, but the 5-year reliability program that we've got does, and that's where we're trying to address the gaps going forward. I'm just looking at my notes here because there was something else I wanted to say, but I think let me just leave it there for the moment. Hopefully that addresses the question that came up. Thank you very much, Honourable Tsebe.
Stats SA, would you like to add something to that? Because it is also true that the Honourable Member said that although you've got communities that's got piped water, there's no water in the pipes. And that is important. Would you like to add to that, Stats SA? DDG?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. So on our side, we measure reliability by looking at if there's been water interruptions, anything from above 2 days to about 15 days over a period of a year. So then you will see if there are interruptions, whether they are on consecutive days or over a period of time. But it must be within a year where this lasts from 2 to 15 days. And that's the 68% that we have on reliability. But on access to water, Chair, we have said that the access to improved drinking water services, for us, it's about 85.1%, and we see that the department has used 89%, but that's something that we have to talk about and look at their definition, because it's important to see what definition they are using compared to what we are using in the SDG report, because the definitions in the SDG report are the definitions that we have to use from the United Nations. So that's something that we can give a written reply to and see what causes the discrepancies and try and reconcile them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The other questions, Honourable Deputy Minister?
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Honourable Tebe refers to the issue of pollution, refers to it in two parts. Particularly in terms of the principal legislation, as far as the amendments that we want to make to the National Water Act, particularly that personal liability that needs to go towards mayors, MMs, and other directors. I think it's important, Honourable Tebe, particularly in the case of Machabeng. I mean, I think when you mention Machabeng, I think the entire executive almost sort of like shakes their head, because the reality is that the department is intervening in Machabeng. About over 1,500 kilometers of water and sanitation network has to be replaced there, Honourable Chairperson. Val Central is the implementing agent on behalf of the department. Of course, because of the dire state of the infrastructure there will be issues in and around the issues of raw sewage discharge into water resources. I'm not sure, Honourable Tebe, if when you made reference to the fact that that particular issue of Tikwe River, for example, Val Central can easily deal with that particular issue and then invoice the department. I don't know. Maybe it is something that I can explore. You are most welcome to give me the details as you gave them to Dr. Ntili. Then we can have a facilitation with Val Central and see how feasible that is. But I would imagine that there's some form of service level agreement would need to be in place in order for that to be able to happen. And also already considering that Val Central is already an implementing agent on behalf of the department in Machabeng in addressing those issues of infrastructure collapse. I think on the 2 points, Chairperson, as it relates to the withholding of equitable shares as well as the SPV, which will go a long way in reducing the deficit, as we indicated in the earlier questions asked by Honorable Reddy. I think we agree wholeheartedly with Honorable Ditebe as far as that is concerned. And the municipality, or the WSAs that would have entered into a payment agreement with water boards, would have already seen that as and when they start paying, servicing their debt, the agreement being that the what do you call it? The other what do you call it? The money that is incurred if you don't pay, if you don't service your debt, that will be written away by National Treasury. I think a lot of our WSAs have taken up that offer, but of course, there are other municipalities that are still disputing historical debt because of the historical debt, for example, in Sidibeng, which was decommissioned, and now Mahalis, with other municipalities that are still saying that they're disputing some of the debt that is put before them, and that is, of course, a process that the department has been engaged with since the beginning of the 7th administration. I wonder if you would allow me, Chairperson, for DDGs Zwane to just also then come in, particularly on the issues around the polluter pay principle, as well as the establishment of the National Polluter Register that will be able to be complemented by the amendments to the National Water Act. Manget?
Thank you, DM. Honorable Member Ditebe mentioned the issue of active citizenry, and maybe to indicate part of our work is to ensure that we establish catchment management forums across the country, which are then have all the stakeholders which are represented. They discuss all the issues that are related to water, including water pollution. So we're also able to go and present on this forum either on a monthly basis or quarterly, depending on their TORs. And we've recently established one anti-pollution forum, which is covering the whole Vaal River from Mpumalanga all the way, including Northern Cape. It's led by an independent chairperson and is driven by the Vaal Orange Catchment Management Agency. They've developed an action plan which will cover the issues of pollution from Umsuka Ligwa. And then they've also, part of the work, they will be identifying key points of pollution, and then that will lead us to then implementing the register that the DM has indicated, the pollution register, once we have resolved all issues, all legal issues that might arise by maybe, say, having someone on the register, only to find that maybe we have not given them we've not given due process in terms of administrative justice, making sure that they respond, and only when they fail to respond, and we have given them directives and so on, then we can put them there on the pollution register. We are also progressively implementing the waste discharge charge system in the country, which talks to the polluter pay as reflected by the DM. Then on the issue which the DM has just indicated, where we have issued the directives and we realize that the pollution is continuing or the non-compliance is continuing, the Act allows us to undertake execution of works and then reclaim from the polluter. But we have been struggling with the resources to do that across the country. We have done it in some cases where there is an unlawful dam that we have realized that it's unsafe. Through our partnership with Public Works, we were able to demolish that dam in Limpopo. But the Act does allow us to execute works and then recover from the polluter. Thank you, DM.
Thank you very much, Mangete. Honorable Ditebe, I suppose the issue of the SPV and the issue of equitable share is now with National Treasury to execute, because we have given them all the documentation, as you would have correctly indicated that the DG had said that there were some glitches with National Treasury. And as far as implementing that withholding of equitable share is concerned, it's the same as with the SPV. It is with National Treasury. National Treasury just has to give concurrence so that we can be able to then proceed accordingly, so that we are able to then work towards reducing that deficit. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Ditebe.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I'm very happy to hear from Mr. Zwane that indeed the department is able to incur the expenses and claim from the polluter. And obviously, I'm saying this with this in mind, namely that some of the destruction to the environment caused by the polluter may be so huge that the department might very well be distracted. But I welcome that. So in other words, they'll have to use their own discretion. Certainly, in my view, the one of Tikwe River, and I know that river from, when I was very young. It used to be quite clean, etc. But now it's deeply polluted, such that if you drive over the bridge, literally you are confronted by this putrid stench. Same way as when you drive along Settlers Way here in Cape Town with the stench of the sewer there. So it's the same thing. So I'd really like them to go and have a look. But I have supplied the video to Dr. Ndidi, and indeed I'd like them to take that into account. So of the SPV, I'm very happy. But Chairperson, the one of the equitable share, and again, with Machabeng, I know they can be quite resistant to things that make just sense to everybody when they are supposed to be done. So I'd really like them to ensure that that happens, so that then we can ensure that the Water Board, the Val Central, and certainly Mahalis and others are able to perform. So I'm happy, Chairperson, with that, if that could be done. Thank you.
Yes, I think we should re-invite National Treasury to the committee to speak about this equitable share again, if members are satisfied that we go that route. The DG also informed me that they don't get the right information out of Treasury. So I think it is important for us to do our oversight role, is to re-invite National Treasury on the equitable share. The next person on the list is Honorable Kumalo and then Honorable Moore. Honorable Kumalo.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. I greet the Deputy Minister, our colleagues, and the members of the staff.
Don't forget me.
Akoti, you will come after Honorable Moore. Sorry for that, Honorable Kumalo.
No problem. Thank you very much, Chair, for this opportunity. First of all, I want to say that I concur with my colleagues on the issue of the bleak picture that this report is painting. It is bleak indeed. It looks like we are not winning this battle. The issue, when it comes to the issue of the infrastructure maintenance and stuff, we are definitely not winning. And one wonders as to where does Operation Vulindlela fits in here, when we have so many challenges that that the country is actually facing in terms of ensuring that people do get clean water, people do get, the pipes are in order. So it's really something that, again, we need to look into, because since we came here, this has been a topic, and it looks like there's no plans really in place, or even if there are plans, but they are not yielding the desired results. It's been a year now, and we've been talking about the same thing over and over again. And again, there's this issue of the penalties that I also want to raise, even though it has been addressed, but I felt I should also say something about it. It is not consequence management when a municipality has a sewer spillage into the river, and when a person is when the municipality is being charged for that wrongdoing, the mayor and the municipal manager, they are not basically held accountable for that. But instead, it's the taxpayers' money again that is being used to pay for that fine. I feel as the committee, we need to start looking into that legislation and try and see as to how we can improve it, because we will continue to have these challenges if this piece of legislation is not corrected the way it should be, so that we can have the results that we desire. Another thing that I want to raise, Chair, is the fact that when we say there's been a population growth, that is why we don't have the infrastructure that is improved, infrastructure that is able to cater for everybody. I don't want to agree with that one, because I'll tell you why. We have Stats SA here. Stats SA, I think they are the people who are responsible to do projections. So they are able to project as to how many people in the next 5 years are going to be born and are going to be in South Africa. I think that's what they've been doing since they started doing what they're doing currently. So for anyone to say we are unable to do this because of the population growth, I would say no. I don't agree with that statement. Basically, what has happened, it's just a poor planning on the side of many departments, not this one in particular. So to me, population growth is not an excuse, because the population has been growing since I was born. Even before I was born, population was growing. So anyone in power or in any department should acknowledge the fact that the population will grow. So you need to plan in advance to ensure that you cater for the growth that is coming inevitably. And lastly, I need to look at, that's my last shot. The presentation has given us that there are deaths which are caused by unclean water, which means it's diseases that are what they call waterborne diseases. Now, I would appreciate if they can break down into those figures, if they can break down into provinces and also break down into regions, so that we as a committee can understand and see as to where exactly is the problem, so that whenever we come together and whenever we discuss whatever these issues, we can put our energies, especially to those areas which we feel are not doing very well. So that was my last parting shot. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think the last question, if they can't answer that question, it is important to get that report. So we then ask the department to if they cannot answer or break this down, I think we would like to see this in writing, to break down this waterborne diseases into areas so that we can see where the problem lies. Deputy Minister?
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Thank you to Honorable Nxumalo. I wondered if our colleagues at Stats SA wouldn't want to then respond to the last question by Honorable Nxumalo.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Honorable Nxumalo. My colleague Soli Mulai is going to take this question, because while we won't be able to supply the numbers, we have to say at what level are we able to give the information. If you allow me, Chair, I will call upon Soli to respond. Soli?
Good morning, Chairperson and the honorable members. In terms of the breaking down the numbers, in terms of the death, we can able to do it, Chair, because we are getting the death notification from Home Affairs. we are able to be shared with yourselves. We are able to get to a district level and able to provide these numbers. So I think, Chair, we can able to provide those particular results if they are needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I maybe just ask whether you will also like to comment on the population growth that the downtrend is because of poor planning? Stats SA, would you like to comment on that?
Certainly, Chair. From our side, we do have two reports that help us to understand the population. Firstly is the census that we run every 10 years. And in 2022, we indicated that the population is sitting around 62 million, sorry. In between censuses, we do have a product which we call it a mid population estimate. We're releasing it on around June, July. And the reason being is that it gives us a sense of how the population have grown, and we're able to tell the South Africans and also the government in large to say where are we sitting in terms of population. So we are able to provide, and if the department is keen, in the next a month or so, we'll be also releasing a report that gives us a sense. Moving from the 63 million, the question is how many are we, and able to break it down in terms of provinces. So we are able to tell how the population has been growing for the past 30 years or so. Thank you.
Mr. Bannister, I see your hands up. Would you like to answer that question? I think we don't contest the fact that the population is growing. The fact is that the figure that dropped, is that due to poor planning? Can you maybe speak on that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I fully agree with what Honourable Khumalo has raised in that regard. And I think the committee can be assured that when it comes to our own planning, from everything from the water services development plans, the 5-year reliability plans, all our grants in terms of regional bulk infrastructure grant, etc., all take into account population growth. It's essential. When it comes to SDG 6, which is what this presentation is about, then that's where there's a deficiency from the criteria given to us by the United Nations, which is a criteria which they apply globally through every country so they can compare apples with apples. And that's where that deficiency doesn't take into consideration the population growth. And that's from the UN perspective. So we are restricted to report on the criteria given to us by the United Nations. But in our own day-to-day work, absolutely population growth is essential as part of planning. So it's not a deficiency from our side, only in terms of the indicator. Thank you, Chair.
So what you're saying is the situation is different because you do take this into consideration, if I understand you correct. Deputy Minister, do I understand that correct?
Chair, I think we can let Mr. Bannister just emphasize the point of clarify the response in as far as that is concerned.
Mr. Bannister?
Mark?
Thank you very much, Honourable DM. Yeah, I think that's you basically got that correct, Chair. That from our side, there is no problem with the population is taken. Growth isn't taken into account completely within our business. But in terms of the criteria given to us by the United Nations, it doesn't take that into account. And we can't change those figures because otherwise they're going to have a situation which compares apples with pears. So we have to, on the global platform, we have to comply with that. But 100% from our side, population growth is fully integrated into our planning. I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister, on penalties?
Yeah, Chairperson, I think we did emphasize earlier when we spoke that the amendments to the Principal Act is also aimed at holding accounting officers liable where negligence can be proven. And I think Honourable Khumalo's point is, of course, fair in that because a municipality is looked at as a juristic person, it is in actual fact then the ratepayers of that municipality that then bear the costs of whatever judgment that would then be made by a court towards that municipality. For example, Dipali saying that is fined however many millions, that does not go towards the accounting officers, whether it's the MM or whether it's the political principals. And I think the point of emphasis that we need to make is precisely for that fact, Honorable Nxumalo, to make sure that we are in a position where the legislation allows us to hold the accounting officers liable where negligence has been proven by a court. And I think that's very important. And just to also then agree with Honorable Nxumalo, Chair, and as far as the issue of population growth is concerned, particularly in the context of planning. And I do think that there's quite a number of water services authorities that have been without infrastructure master plans for a long time. So Honorable Nxumalo's sentiments around that are correct. That Stats SA has undertaken these studies for a long time. And these are the studies that, of course, ought to have been used in order to be able to plan accordingly for infrastructure growth, as it relates to whether the refurbishment or the upgrading of water treatment plants, wastewater treatment infrastructure, to make provision for those particular for that aspect of population growth. So I do think that he's quite correct in that there hasn't been planning, particularly from an infrastructure point of view, and one can understand why he does not agree with the fact that population growth is the reason why people lack access and reliability and so forth and so on. But I do think that just to emphasize the point also that when we do give RBIC and WISIC grants, that we will obviously consider which WSA are we giving these grants to, and make a determination on whether we do a 5B allocation or whether we do a 6B allocation, particularly in respect of the WSAs, the 105 WSAs that have been highlighted as critical. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody from the department that still wants to add something to this before I go to Stats SA to get their final on this? So anybody from the department?
Thank you, Chair. I am Muloko Matala from the Department of Water and Sanitation, the acting DDG for Water Resource Management. I just want to also weigh in on the issue of population growth. I just want to factor the way spatial planning was done prior to 1994, and because it did not take into account the provision of water services into account. And so while we are chasing the target, but we also had a lot of backlog that we had to deal with as a department to take into account the complexities brought about by poor spatial planning as far as water services is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. The DDG of Stats SA, would you like to add something to these questions, reply to the questions?
Thank you, Chair. On our side, no, we're fine. We just would like to concur with Honorable Nxumalo that we give these projections for a long period of time. We don't just give them for that year, as Soli has explained, but we also give them ahead. We project ahead, so we are covered, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Tamalo.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad that we are all in agreement that there are some amendments that needs to be made on this piece of legislation. It's very important that we do that, and I wish we can do that as in yesterday, because we cannot allow this culture of negligence that is taking place to continue as it is carrying on. Because right now we've heard of the waterborne diseases, which in the main also are being caused by water pollution. Secondly, I'm glad that we also agree on the fact that there are some discrepancies between United Nations and the SDG 6 what do you call SDG 6 project. I'll call it a project that they need to be addressed as in yesterday. And I'm also happy, Chair, for lastly, that the Stat SA has also agreed with me that they indeed do they do projections for population growth over a long period of time. So it just proves the point that I've just made, that indeed there is a problem with planning. We need to plan. The departments needs to plan. Everybody that is responsible needs to plan. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Moore.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the Deputy Minister. Thank you to the department representatives, the representatives from Stats SA for the presentations. Chairperson, I'd like to start by saying, as clearly acknowledged in the department's own presentation, South Africa is clearly not on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 6 targets by 2030. Despite some isolated positive indicators such as increasing community participation and modest gains in basic sanitation access, the significant regression we are seeing in critical areas including water quality, wastewater management, infrastructure reliability, and freshwater sustainability highlight broader systemic challenges that remain unresolved. These have been highlighted by my colleagues in committee today. The reports tabled are deeply concerning. Non-revenue water losses are sitting at approximately 47%, directly undermining the financial sustainability of municipalities. Our wastewater systems are deteriorating, with around 40% of systems in a critical state, and compliance with microbiological drinking water standards has fallen from just 5% non-compliance in 2014 to a shocking 46% in 2023. These failures place lives, public health, and environmental integrity at risk. And while National Treasury has allocated 156 billion rand to water and sanitation infrastructure over the next 3 years, the department has identified a 400 billion rand backlog. This is a funding gap of over 240 billion rand, and without a clear plan to close it, even the most critical projects may remain incomplete. Equally importantly, Chair, the headline statistics like the 89% basic access to water obscure the true picture, as only 68% of that supply is reliable, as been highlighted by Honourable De Tebe earlier. This means millions of South Africans continue to experience service that is intermittent, unsafe, or altogether absent. In short, the current trajectory suggests we're moving further away from achieving our SDG 6 targets. Urgent and coordinated action is required to change course. This means not only more funding, but also improved municipal governance, stronger accountability, and measurable improvements in reliability, water quality, and infrastructure condition. And so, Chair, my 3 relatively short questions, and I'm sorry to throw the Deputy Minister under the bus, but first, can the department explicitly acknowledge, based on its own reports and data, including declining compliance with drinking water standards, the worsening state of wastewater treatment, and high non-revenue water losses, that the water and sanitation sector is regressing rather than improving, and that we are not on track to meet SDG 6 targets by 2030? The second question is that while National Treasury has allocated 156.3 billion rand over the next 3 years for water and sanitation infrastructure, the department itself stated that the funding required to eliminate infrastructure backlogs and meet SDG 6 targets is closer to 400 billion rand. Given this still substantial shortfall, can the department confirm whether it is realistically possible to complete the key projects it has prioritized? And what measures are being pursued to secure the balance of the funding needed? And finally, Chair, my third question is, the department's reporting indicates that basic access to water is around 89%, yet actual service reliability is only 68%. Would the department be willing to acknowledge that the headline indicator of access significantly overstates the real experience of residents, and that if reliability were factored in, the effective level of service is much lower? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister?
Chairperson, thank you very much, and thank you very much to Honorable Moore. I think it goes without saying, Chairperson, that the acknowledging that the water sector has regressed is born out of the blue, green, and no drop report. And I think to say something contrary to what the drop reports have told us would be misleading the portfolio committee and would be misleading South Africans in particular. So that acknowledgement is born out of the green, blue, and no drop report. It is indeed regrettable, and we can, as a department, we can obviously talk about the challenges that we've highlighted that are on Mr. Bannister's presentation, as well as the opening remarks that indicated some of these systematic issues that we're facing, particularly as it relates to the poor performance of WSAs in the country. I would just like to check, Chairperson, with the department, DDG Zwane, if there is anyone who would like to respond to that particular first question as it relates to Honorable Moore's question around acknowledgement. DDG?
Thank you, DM. I think in your opening remarks just now, you referring to the blue, green, and no drops. We do highlight these challenges, the status quo of the water sector from the last time we did this report in 2013-2014 versus when we resumed to the report in 2022. There are clear challenges that are reflected there, which the minister in holding the water Indaba was aimed also at addressing the outcomes of the drops, but also looking at the current challenges that are there. And you will also have noted that the president himself has established the national task team to address the issues of the water in the country. Thank you, Chair.
Can I maybe just, Deputy Minister, let's just make one thing clear. We are not saying that the department is digressing. We say the water situation in the country, specifically within municipalities, are digressing, and not the department itself, because we see extensive improvement within the department and the management of the department. But however, because water is in our name, water sanitation, everything that's going wrong with water will fall back onto the department, but it should go back to COCTA. But I just want to make that straight.
No, that's accepted, Chairperson, and I think it's important that we emphasize that point in that way, particularly given the number of interventions that we are making across a number of municipalities in the country. Chairperson, I don't know if I'd written Honorable Moore's last two questions correctly, but I do want to indicate that in order to be able to, and we've referred to this when we were responding to Honorable Reddy's question on the issue of how we're going to address the issue of the deficit in comparison to the 156 billion that's been allocated, and of course the shortfall that Honorable Moore has indicated. Perhaps without wanting to sound like a broken record in as far as how we're going to deal with the issue of the deficit is concerned, I do think that the emphasis on triple Ps, the emphasis on the Water Partnership Office that is in the office of the DG, the introduction of this licensing model for WSPs that would then be able to be in a position where they're able to operate and maintain a water services infrastructure on behalf of WSAs would be in a position for us to be able to really address the issue of the shortfall. We also need to look at the issue of bankable projects, Chairperson, in order to be able to open that up to the market so that we know that whichever mega bulk projects that we are investing in as a department, that those are bankable and that there is investment that will be able to be that will be able to come in as far as that is concerned. I'm concerned that I didn't get to the third question from Honorable Moore, Chairperson, if you would assist me in that regard.
Yeah, he asked whether the reliable water of 68%, where we say that 85% of people, 98% of people's got water, but the reliability of water is 68%. And I think that's something that Stats SA can also speak on.
Yeah.
So
I think
that is more. Honorable Moore, did I get your question correct, or would you like to amend?
Oh, 100%, Chair. Just very briefly, the department's indicates that basic access to water is around 89%, but actual service reliability is only 68%. And we're just trying to ask if the department is willing to acknowledge that the headline indicator of 89% access significantly overstates the real experience of residents, and that if reliability were factored in, the effective level of service is sadly much lower.
Agree. You've got that, Deputy Minister?
Yes, it's almost a similar question that was asked by Honorable Ditebe previously in terms of the figure around access versus reliability. Let me hand over to our colleagues at Stats SA to respond, and then I'll also ask Mark to then come in on that, Chairperson, through you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry.
You can continue.
We measure reliability together with access. So it's like electricity that we'll find that a lot of households have access to the grid, but in terms of interruptions in electricity and the quality thereof, then that also forms part of this narrative. So Honorable Moore is correct in saying which headline does the department want to go with? Do they want to go with access, which looks good at 85% in our numbers and 89% in theirs, which is still left to reconcile, or do they go with the quality of the service that people are getting? And as they say, we don't like commenting on policy matters. I'll hand this back over to them. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Honourable Moore, as well. I did put the statement in the presentation regarding 6.1 and 6.2 to say that the indicator itself is deficient because it doesn't capture whether water supply systems or sanitation systems are functional or not. So if functionality was taken into account, then the proportion of South African population that has access to safely managed water supply and safely managed sanitation would show a very sharp decline. So I fully concur with what's been said, and I have kind of clarified that in the presentation. And in terms of the first question, are we on track to meet SDG 6 by 2030? No, we're not. And that's what the SDG 6 program has highlighted, again, right at the presentation, the beginning of the presentation. 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, we won't meet. The other ones, we are confident that we will. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honourable Moore?
Chairperson, before Honourable Moore can come in, we also have an official of the department, Mr. Xolani Hadebe, who might also want to come in and respond to some of the questions. Mr. Hadebe?
Thank you, DM, and all protocol observed. The issue of reliability, I think the Minister is quite aware of that issue, and she has been vocal, and hence, as a department, we are measuring that particular criteria. But what we might need to engage on is that the issue of reliability is informed by operation and maintenance. That should be driven by the municipality. As a department, we we are supporting municipality in terms of the new infrastructure. So in terms of access, the infrastructure is there. That talks to the 89% or the 86%, but the reliability is the issue of the municipality, ensuring that they implement operation and maintenance to improve that. But as a department, we acknowledge that, hence we are measuring it, and we are supporting the municipalities in terms of developing the 5-year reliability plans. I think Mark has alluded in terms of what is it that we take into account when we come up with the construction of these treatment works in terms of supporting municipalities. We look at the population to say our infrastructure should be able to accommodate the population increase, for an example, for the next coming 20 years. So population is being taken into account when we come up with new infrastructure. So the reliability issue is the issue of O&M that is solely should be driven by the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister, could you also just look in the chat where the department maybe can just answer that question before we conclude this meeting? Honorable Moore, well, are you satisfied?
Yes, Chair, and I'd like to just say I really appreciate the information. I think the reality is the department has a very firm understanding of the challenges, and things like the Water and Indaba give a very good indication of a serious effort to resolve them. And I'd like to say I'm very excited for the changes to the Water Services Act. Obviously, we're going to need to get a chance as a committee to go through those, because I think we need to be able to actually get to grips with them. We haven't seen them yet. And I think that's going to be very important, because a lot of what needs to change, we all know it. You say it, I say it, Honourable Jitebe says it, Honourable Reddy says it. We have a firm grip. It's now time to get those next steps. But thanks very much, Chair. This has been very useful.
Thank you very much. The next person is Honourable Makahula, and then Honourable Kegakilwe and Honourable Webster, but I don't see her on. I'm not sure whether she's left, but we'll deal with that when we get there. Honourable Makahula?
Thank you very much.
Komakoti, let's go.
Sorry, Chair, sorry for the interruption, Makaula. But Chair, I've had my hand up, I think, for quite a while. I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, it went down, but you are after Honourable Kegakilwe.
No problem, Chair.
All right.
Thank you, Chair. Ngibingelele kuwe Chair nakubo bonke abalapho. Ngiphinde futhi ngibonge ne-presentation. Ngiphinde again ngibonge abakwa-statistics okuyi-census. Ngemvume yakho Chair, ngidedele ke ngithi ukuzitika ngabo. Uyabona njengoba sinale crisis engaka yamanzi, yezindlu, njalo njalo. Inkinga ilele kwa-statistics or kwa-census, laba benza i-census. Ukubalwa, ukwazi ukuthi bangaki abantu, ama-householder, njalo njalo, abasebenzayo, abangasebenzi, iy'nkinga zomphakathi. Kwagcinwa ngo-1996. I was a part of leyo counting. Emva kwalokho, lento bayithatha bayenza itender. Itender iyafeyila dismal. Ukwenza umsebenzi, ukukhawunta ukuthi bangaki abantu abakhona, kambe ngesikhathi esukuthi babe bangaki. Ukuze kuthi uma kwenziwa ibudget, kwazi ukuthi abantu bangaka endaweni ethize, nazi idingo zabo 1 or 2 or 3. Manje into abayenzayo balento bayinikeza ithenda. Mabe benze just lofanisa kamasho. Mabe benze imizi ewu5, kibona sebenze yonke imizi. Inkinga esinazo kangaka indaba ikubona abasabali seba-estimator. Ngibuyele kule yemfula. Honorable Thebe ukhulume into angazi mina ngimbone ingane kumina, but kodwa ukhuluma into eyiqiniso ukuthi imifula beyiklinwa ukuze kwenzele phela ukuthi amanzi angasabalali ungagcina somile noma emele endawonye ngoba imifula vele kwathina myself sikhule siphila siphuza leya mfula ngoba biklina amanzi ageleza kwazi ukuthi mawuphuza amanzi aseceleni zophuza ungcola kodwa mawukha amanzi esenta aclean. Ngibuyele kulena yokushona kwabantu. Ngiyabonga lana ku-honorable lona othi funeka sazi phela indawo la ukuthi kuphi la bashona khona kakhulu lesi sibalo ukuze sikwazi. Kufanele abantu baphuza amanzi eyihosha, ihosha engagelezi. Like nje khona baphuza imfula kuthiwa icuphu osokwaba ichibe elimeleyo. Okunye la chairperson uyabona la bakhuluma ngo-400 million abafuna ukuthi ungaphinda ufaka ungafaka kanjani imali kubantu obona ukuthi lo msebenzi awuyi phambili kunoma uye phambili uyahlehla. Ngivumelane futhi nokuthi imeya nama management kuyafuneka ke bezophendula ukuthi bona ngempela bathini ngezidingo zabantu. And ilento abaka census noma baka lokhuzana SA estate abayi inhlobo emakhaya bagcina emadolobheni nasedolobheni futhi khona bawenza umsebenzi. Sengiya ngokugcina lana ngifuna ukwazi ke manje sebetholile right ukuthi kunabantu abangaka abashonile bebulawa ukuthi baphuza amanzi angcolile. Isiphi isinyathelo abasithathile to make sure ukuthi lento ingenzeki nokuthi bavulelwe icala ke lawo masipala kuleyo ndawo ukuze silisane nalento ngoba ayikho into ebhlungu ukuthi umuntu afe ngesikhathi ungakafanele. Lena ke ye-summit indaba ye-summit ngiyayizwa but kimina into zonke lezo to me it look like it's wasting of money ngoba ekugcineni umphakathi wakithi awusizakali kuyahlanganwa lapha yakukhulunywe kuvezwe imibono kodwa ekugcineni akekho umuntu ogcina sizakala. Yingakho chair ngiye ngithi mina uyabona lento yokuhlangana kanje silo sikhuluma lento kunoma isise phambili izosireversisa. Kuyimanje abantu kade betelekela amanzi bevala imigwaqo amanzi abanawo. Kuyimanje njengoba ngikhuluma ngawo kunezikole ezingenawo amanzi othola usefika ekseni ingane ngo-11 ufuna iphume ngoba amanzi awekho sisasebenzisa imigodi ama-toilet. Kulena-ke yokungcoliswa kwemifula nakhona kulele komasipala. Omasipala benze sure ukuthi bayabheka ukuthi awekho yini amapayipi axhunywe ngokungemthetho abantu abawafaka emfuleni. Awukho yini udoti okufakwa emfuleni ngoba ekugcineni solo sihleli la lo sikhuluma into engekho. And lesi sibalo nami ngiyavumelana nawe honorable Mo. Lesibalo abasinikeza sona lesi statistics sabo asikho bazijasi nje ukwenza ngoba bazibona ukuthi mabeza kwi-portfolio committee thina singama-rubber stamp noma singama-toys bazofika basitshele bakhohlwe ukuthi thina siphansi kubantu. Labantu bayahluleka ukwenza umsebenzi wabo. Ugovernment noma umasipala bahluleka ukwenza umsebenzi phansi through bona ngoba abakwazi ukuthi nasi isibalo esisitholile kulo muzi kunabantu abasebenza kulo muzi abanazo izindlu kulo muzi amanzi awekho banikeza umasipala into right. So umasipala uthatha i-chance na uzenzela izinto babuye back bazothi bafuna imali ezokwenza baqhubeka umsebenzi. Ukuqhuma kwama-pipe infrastructure yinto zonke lezo esingeke sikwazi ukuzwelana nabo. Ibona ofuneka basifeyilayo la eSouth Africa. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you. Can we quickly get that translated, please?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Member Kaula is grateful for the presentation that was given, thanks to Stats SA. But with your permission, I'd like to address Stats SA in particular, because the crisis with water, housing, and so on, the problem is with Stats SA, because they don't do census anymore. The last census that was done was in 1996, which she was part of. And then following that, this was allocated to a tender process, which is failing the people because the budget is not aligned to the needs of the people. For instance, in Guamashu, they would go perhaps to 5 households, and then take those to represent everybody, which is not correct. And from then on, they just give estimates without doing the actual census. She agrees with Member Ditebe that rivers were cleaned in previous years to keep them flowing and to keep them in a clean state. So we should perhaps look into that again, because the death of people due to waterborne disease and so on, we should know where these are happening and exactly given the specifics of what is going on. The department is now mentioning that they need about 400 billion rand to complete the work. But how do we allocate so much money to a department that is not really making progress? The mayors and the management should be held to account, and Stats SA should start visiting the villages in order to get the true picture of the situation. And finally, when it comes to death statistics, she wants to know what steps are being taken by the department for people to account when it comes to this, because it's really painful for some people, so many people, to die prematurely because of neglect. When it comes to the summit, she looks at it as a waste of money because opinions are expressed, but no action is taken. And talking only does not help, because right now people are protesting about water. Schools do not have water. They still use pit toilets. The municipalities should go and check if there are any illegal connections that are causing spillage into the rivers and damaging the environment. She agrees with Mr. Member Moore that these figures are not necessarily accurate, because the portfolio committee now is taken as a measure to just rubber stamp and give authority for budgets and so on. But they should go back to grassroots and see what the municipalities are doing. And instead of them taking chances and just taking shortcuts, they should be thorough in their work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, thank you so much, and thank you to Honorable Makaula. I think let's give the colleagues at Stats SA the first bite to respond to the first comment by Makaula, as well as the issue around the action taken on waterborne deaths that have been presented. DDG?
Thank you very much, DM, and thank you very much, Honorable Member, for your comments. Let me start with the census. We did a census in 1996, which you were part of, and we are grateful for that. Then we did another one in 1996, and then 2001. Then we did another one in 2011. The last one was in 2022. So what happens with censuses, as you do them over time, you will see that people will not want to be counted. And when people are not counted, we then do what we call adjustments for them, because we have to run a post-enumeration survey to see who we have missed and then make sure that we adjust for them. Now, the censuses, when you do them, they are a very expensive project. They go in the region of billions, and they need a lot of people. For example, in 2022, we had to appoint more than 100,000 field workers, and the population, the staff complement of Stats SA is around 3,000. So we could not go and do the census ourselves. So what do? We look for unemployed young people who will go into houses. So it's not like we give this over to someone else with a tender to go and do it on our behalf. Now, between censuses, we have what we call intercensal surveys. So we have 18 million dwelling units that we have to go to. In the intercensal survey, we go to a portion of that, and that we do in the midpoint of the census, so that we can get a feel of what is going on in the country. Apart from that, we have regular surveys that are much smaller, but can talk to every part of South Africa, in rural areas, in farms, in informal settlements, in urban areas. Now, of the 18 million, our methodology requires that, the methodology that is used the world over, that we take only 30,000 of those and go and look at them. And we are able then to say what is happening with employment, with income, with basic services. So the only time that you can count everyone is during the census. But on other times, you just have to do surveys that are going to tell you what is happening. And on population, the only time you can go and count everyone and get the population count is in the census. And over the intercensal period, going to even beyond, we have to do population projections to know if we are growing or not. So that's what we do. Now, my colleague Soli is going to add on anything I've left out. On just the one thing about the diseases, people who are dying of waterborne diseases. So what we do here is the information that we produce. This information has to go to the Department of Health and has to go to the district municipalities that have to go and deal with that on the ground. It is not for us, as let's say, to do something about it, except to make sure that people have to use this information for planning and for reporting and for interventions, that they have access to this information. So, Chair, I think I will end there. If you allow Soli to just say one thing, then we finish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. Just to add on my colleague, beside the census and also the normal survey that we're running, we also have a product that I've already alluded to, a Chair, which we call it a immediate population estimate. It gives us a sense of how the population is behaving in between censuses. And we're using all the admin records that are available in our disposal, including the number of children that are enrolled in the education system. We're looking at the voter roll, which is also very important for us. We're also looking at what we call it the National Population Register, which is managed by Department of Home Affairs. This information, Chair, it gave us a sense of giving us and also we're backing up with the census and also the data that is coming from the surveys. We are able to come up with an estimate of the population in between the censuses and also in parallel with the surveys that we are running. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Minister, would you and your department like to
Chair.
respond to those responses?
Right. Not particularly, Chair, but I do want us to proceed with Dr. Matlala, who will take us through the issue in and around river health, as mentioned by Honorable Makaula, who might also then assist us in highlighting the annual report on the status of our rivers. Dr. Matlala?
Thank you, DM, and thank you, Chair. We issue the National State of Water report on a year-to-year basis, using what we call hydrological year. And during that process, we give the public and all the stakeholders the quality of water that we find in our rivers and also in our aquifers, the underground water resources. Yes, so it will tell you how are those rivers polluted, or how are those rivers clean in terms of being in the pristine environment if they are not contaminated by upstream contaminants. But what the report is also highlighting is the kind of tentative polluters that are polluting the river. It could be the agricultural sector. It could be the municipalities through the wastewater treatment works. So it's a very comprehensive report that tells us about the state of water in the country in terms of quality and also in terms of quantity. Thank you, DM.
Thank you, Dr. Matlala. Chair, I just wanted to indicate perhaps one should just be as blunt as possible. When we started, particularly if you look at what the outcome of the water and sanitation in Daba was, one would have the view that yes, it was a waste of money. But again, if we hadn't done anything as the National Department of Water and Sanitation, we would have then been complicit in the current state of water and sanitation across many WSAs. So, I mean, it just really depends on how you look at that. And yes, indeed, it's true that there are communities that still don't have water. But I think we did mention and make the point, as Xolani also made the point to say, the issue of O&M is a critical issue that unfortunately is non-existent in a lot of WSAs. And there is quite a lot of the issues that the members would raise, of course, would fall within the ambits of WSAs and not necessarily with us as the Department of Water and Sanitation. That is why we've got the grant funding that we have. That is why we've got, so the interventions that we have in WSAs. That is why we're making amendments to key principal legislations in order for us to be able to allow ourselves as a national department to really intervene and begin to try and move the needle in as far as the current state of water and sanitation is concerned in the country. One of the agreements that we had, Honorable Chairperson, at the Water and Sanitation in Daba is that municipalities must, within the first 3 months, remove all illegal connections. Now, the Department of Water and Sanitation cannot go and do this work itself. That is why the WSAs, as the government closest to the people, must be able to undertake some of these low-hanging fruit actions, as it were, in order to be able to begin a process of making sure that there's no illegal connections and therefore there is no illegal discharge of waste into our water resources. And that is a fundamental responsibility of WSAs. And with our regional offices, we're working closely to monitor some of the decisions that were actually made at the Water and Sanitation in Durban and what has then become of those particular decisions in the context of WSAs and the role that they needed to play in terms of implementing those outcomes. So I do also want to emphasize the importance of our rivers, Chairperson, because our rivers aren't just rivers because they are water resources, but our rivers also act as enablers to job creation. They act as enablers to local economic development, tourism, recreation, and many other things that we have seen over the past have been able to be beneficial to people living close to our rivers and are able to make a living out of it. And the fact that we've got so many of our water resources that are deeply polluted means that it is contributing largely to the issue of unemployment. It is contributing largely to the crisis that we have in the country, especially when we look at the high rising number of unemployed young people who effectively could have found employment had our rivers and dams been in a pristine situation where it was clean and enabled them to participate in as far as that is concerned. And I think the other issues, Chairperson, the Stats has already responded to 2 of those, but I'm happy to proceed if I've missed anything. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bannister. You had your hand up. Would you like to add something?
I think DM has covered it, other than just to say that to Honourable Makoti that a very comprehensive action plan did evolve from the Indaba, which we are committed to rolling that out and make sure that we do get a commitment from the sector to turn those talk issues into action. So we are fully committed to do that. But thank you.
Thank you very much. I think what I take away from this meeting so far is that there's a golden thread running through all the questions, Deputy Minister, is that the polluter now must pay, and we want to see action by locking up people. But we will deal with that. We will request a full report on this. The question, before I go back to Honourable Makahula, the Chair asked, Honourable Ditebe asked that the CMAs should be extended to areas such as rivers that feed into the integrated Vaal River system from the Lesotho Highlands scheme and other smaller rivers. Minister, if you can maybe get someone to talk on that in the next round when we answer those questions. Honorable Makaula, are you satisfied with the responses that you received?
Thank you, Chair. First, number one, Chair, ngithi kulo nkosazana ongiphendula regarding kulento ye statistics SA. Ngifuna ukuthi ngimazise ukuthi fanele azi ukuthi mayeza kwi-portfolio committee uza kubantu abahlala nabantu on the ground abazi izinkinga zabantu. Yingakho Friday funa sihambe siye kwi-constituency sibuye Monday. Ngiqonda ukutshela ukuthi Chair ngemvume wakho lento engiyishoyo yena ayiphendula ethi kuba nabantu abanqabayo ukubalwa. To me ngingasho ukuthi angazi ngoba kuthiwa kufuneka sithi yena ngizosho ukuthi wrong, total wrong. Kusukela kusekubalwa sekungena lento yamathenda kwi-census awuzange waphinde wenzeka umsebenzi ngendlela efaneleyo. Even abasebenzi laba suke beqashwe benza i-census, even now laba baka 22 abaholi, Chair. So yena njengoba elana funeka lalele thina then abuyele emuva e-office bayolungisa inkinga lezi abayithola ngayo emakhaya. Abayi abantu be-census lezi ndawo zonke, abayi, akekho umuntu onqaba ukubala. Ngoba njoba ngisho ukuthi ngo-1996 I was there, ngangikhona kuleya nto. Wawufika laphayana ubhala uthi lo muzi angifikanga kwani, beka istika sokusho ukuthi asizobuya nini, nithola ukuthi nibuya nini. Mina ngizokusho manje abafundi ukusilalela, bangathi babefika kwi-portfolio committee bacala siyolalela bona thina sihlala nabantu. Ngibonge Chair, kuyimanje njengoba sikhuluma nani funa basitshele ukuthi bathini ngey'nkinga zalaba bantu laba bashonile, beshona ngenxa yobuvila ngenxa yokungasebenzi kweminyango lakho o-environment labo kufuna abalungisa imifula nemihosha. Ngoba asifuni ukuze sithi before 1994 kwakunje kunje, uyabo. Yilo nto ngifuna abalalela, they must pull up their socks.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Can we quickly get translation?
Thank you, Chair. She's grateful to the lady who responded from Stats SA, but she wants her to know that when they come to the portfolio committee, they are actually appearing before people who are in touch with people on the ground, people who are actually aware of what is going on in the communities, because every Friday they go to the constituencies to check on the situation of the people. She shouldn't say people are refusing to be counted. She actually said this is wrong. It's a wrong conclusion because with the introduction of the tender system, no work is really being done. For instance, in 2022, the staff that was employed didn't get to all the places that they needed to go to. So they should come to the portfolio committee and listen and go back to the drawing board to see where things need to be improved, because villages are never covered. In 1996, when she was involved, when they got to a house that didn't have any occupants, they would post a sticker on the door in order to be marked for a return. So she wants to know now about the death of people because of these issues. What is going to be done in terms of caring for the environment and the rivers to make sure that the rivers are kept in a clean state? Thank you.
We take note of that, Honourable Member. I think Stats SA will deal with that within the department and the portfolio committee that they report to. Can I then ask Honourable Kegakilwe to start with her questions. Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to honorable members, Deputy Minister and his delegation, representative from Stats SA. And let me acknowledge both presentations. They were very informative. A lot has been said by honorable members. I'll go straight to the question, Chair. The first question, the presentation stated that we are not going to meet SGD goals or targets. But it's like I'm not going to say the department because this one is for South Africa. It's like now the government is giving up. My question is, where will the department be with regard to water and sanitation in 2030? And what measures are in place to make it a point that they are at least above 70%? And then my second question is with regard to two provinces which were mentioned that they are not really performing, which is Northwest and Free State. What plan or what plans that does the department have to assist those two provinces? And the issue of the Falkop Dam and Hartebees Dam, what is it that is being done? And then my third question is with regard to I just want to know what role is the Department of Environmental Health do with regard to dealing or addressing the issue of water pollution? It can't be the responsibility of one department, but environmental health, they are also expected to do something, but I will get it from the department if they are working with the environmental health to make it a point that our dams are clean. And the other thing, Chair, this is not a question, but it's so confusing for me that it's expensive to clean our water. It's expensive to clean our water. Until when are we going to rely on other people or on other countries? But we must do things for ourselves. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. It will become cheaper to clean our water when we can stop the pollution, because the quality of the water that needs to be clean makes it more expensive. But Minister, over to you.
Chairperson, thank you so much, and thank you to Honorable Kegakilwe. Let me just give to Mr. Bannister to answer then the first question. And then I will give to DDG Xolani Zwane on addressing the issue of pollution, but particularly in terms of the role of DFFE as the custodians of the National Environment Management Act. And what we are doing, what they're doing, or what we are doing as a collective, in order to address the issue of pollution. And then I'll answer the question on the issues of Falkop Dam, and then also would look at then the issues of assisting Free State and Northwest as part of the grant allocations that we make there, as well as the interventions that we've made, particularly in the Free State. Over to you, Mark. And then DDG Zwane.
Thank you, DM, and thank you very much, Honourable Kegakilwe. We appreciate your question. Most certainly, we haven't thrown in the towel. I think the reality is that we don't want to say something that is just not achievable. And I think we've spelled out the challenges that exist, particularly in terms of funding, and then the fact that we have underperforming water service authorities and a massive infrastructure asset management challenge. I think it's best to be upfront and say that we're not going to achieve these by 2030, which again doesn't really help the matter, but I think most of the world are not going to reach SDG 6. I think it's going to be extended. But internally within the department, we have given ourselves the the target to achieve particularly 6.1 and 6.2 up to 90% by 2030, and then the remaining 10% by 2035, provided, depending again on, I hate to come back to it, but in terms of population growth, obviously as we address the 5 million people that have come into the country since 2016, then there'll be additional ones that we have to service. So unfortunately, there are movable goalposts that we have to manage, and we will manage that. But I think that hopefully answers your question. Yeah, but we're not giving up at all. Please be assured. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I would like for, I think it's Mr. Hadebe to come in and answer on the issue of the support to the Free State as well as the Northwest. And then DDG Zwane will come in on the issue of addressing pollution in collaboration with DFFE. Thank you.
DWS, you can continue.
As I don't know if he's dropped off now. I don't see him here.
Can we go to the next question on the Harties and the Valkop Dam?
Yeah. Chairperson, so essentially what is happening with the situation specifically in terms of Valkop Dam, I do have a briefing presentation that will be made on the 25th of June. But in essence, the preliminary reports suggest that the current state of the Valkop Dam, similar to Harties, is because of waste water discharge by the municipality of Rustenburg and Moses Kotane, respectively. But that is just at a preliminary stage at this point in time. Once one has got that presentation from our regulation and compliance branch, we will then be able to know what action are we taking, including the issue of working together with Rhodes Universities on the issue of biological control agents that would need to then be released in Valkop Dam to be able to begin to deal with the issue of the alien invasive species there. But that's all I want to report now. I don't want to necessarily give information that has not yet been provided to me at a primary level. But I know that in the interim, that is what has been said to me. But rest assured, Chairperson, that we will be addressing the issue of Valkop Dam in collaboration with Rhodes University as well as with Magalies, so that we can then be able to see how best we can either physically remove the water hyacinths. But of course, Chairperson, the issue is going to be how do we then get the municipality of Rustenburg as well as Moses Kotane to stop discharging waste into those particular water resources, so that we'll be able to reduce the nutrient load and make sure that we're able to address the alien invasive species.
Deputy Minister, while we're on the Valkop Dam, I don't know whether you have visited the dam, but the infrastructure of the dam, I was there a few months ago. The infrastructure of that dam is in a very, very bad state. It's really a disgrace to see what that infrastructure looks like. So I would request you also to take that up with the department and come up with a solution on how to manage the infrastructure of that dam.
Yeah, I will make a note of that, Chairperson, and ask the colleagues to also make the same note so that we can then refer the matter to our infrastructure branch for a proper assessment of the infrastructure. Thank you.
Then the question on Northwest and the Free State, is there anybody within the department that can answer that question, or should we request you to give that to us in writing within 7 days?
Chairperson, may I request that we provide that in writing, because whilst I'm aware that there are interventions specifically in the Free State and that there are grant allocations to the Northwest, I would not want to mislead the portfolio committee in terms of the specifics. So we will do that in writing and provide to the portfolio committee in 7 days. And then in around the issues of addressing pollution, Honorable Kihakilwe was indicating that she does not believe that it is the sole responsibility of us as DWS in addressing that particular issue. Indeed, the DFFE is the custodian of the National Environment Management Act, and are required also to then take necessary action where there is any pollution of the environment. But what I will then also do in this regard, Chairperson, I will then also just ask our regulation, compliance and enforcement branch to perhaps also just have an indication in report form in terms of what actions the DFFE can take in as the custodians of NEMA, in collaboration with actions that we have taken as the custodians of the National Water Act.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you use the NEMA Act to prosecute members on polluters with that act, and that would be then section 151 of that act, Act 36 of 1998. But yes, the member is correct, but eventually the full responsibility lies with the Minister of Water and Sanitation to secure and protect our water resources in the country, according to the Constitution and the Water Act. Honorable Kegakilwe, are you satisfied with the response and that one question where they will give you in writing on Northwest and the Free State the assistance that they will get?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very much satisfied, and I also thank you for your responses and the responses from the department. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Now it is Honorable Kobe. It's your time for your questions, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, finally.
Finally.
Finally, Chair. Firstly, Chair, I think I'd want to firstly welcome the presentations. I think they were well done and they were able to outline the issues that we have and give us a perspective that's much more granular and gives us numbers to really speak to the issues of water. I think, Chair, what I was particularly worried about, I think it was when Stats SA revealed the water issues, and I think it revealed a deeper issue in terms of governance, and that's my issue. Particularly in the Limpopo province, I'm very, very worried about it. When it showed the poorest quality of water, it was in the Limpopo province. The Limpopo province was leading. When it showed the number of the population without access to improved sanitation, Limpopo was leading. When it showed the lowest access of households, the proportion of them with improved water drinking quality, Limpopo is low. Individuals in households who merely rinse their hands with water and not soap was mostly common in the Limpopo province. And Chair, I think that for me speaks to the issues of a quality of life of the people in the Limpopo province, and also how governance has completely failed them in terms of their access to this basic right. I just want to know, because we have seen that on the other end of the spectrum, the governance looks better in Gauteng, in the Gauteng area and in the Western Cape. Is the department taking sort of best practice within our governments in the country, and not looking particularly for best practice somewhere overseas, but here in the country? Is the department looking to say, while they have their min-max and when they have their intergovernmental interactions, are we looking to capacitate municipalities, especially those that are performing very, very poorly in terms of water and sanitation? But it shows a bigger problem. It's not just water and sanitation. I think water and sanitation is where rubber meets the road, but generally it shows a bigger systemic issues, especially in those provinces. Is the department working on, when they speak to their to water service authorities, talking about capacitating municipalities, particularly in terms of provision of water and services? I always say that the issue is that we have skills deficit in water service authorities. Is the department looking to capacitate them through workshops, best practices, any of those, just so that we can start leveling the playing field in terms of demographics? Chair, also the funding gap. think I'm particularly worried about the funding gap in infrastructure. We need 400 billion, as mentioned before. The president has committed 156 billion over the next 3 years. But Chair, over the solutions that I've been listening to with the funding model, I have not heard a single thing about the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency. This infrastructure agency came into effect last year in August, and it was also given a huge grant of, I think, 29 billion from the Development Bank. Why is the department not making mention of this agency that was created solely to ensure that it addresses the funding gap that seems to not be existent? And also another issue of poor planning that the department has made mention of in terms of infrastructure in our municipalities. This water resource agency that I'm mentioning right now was meant to also ensure that it coordinates and it also plans these projects, and it rolls them out from the top right down, cascading them right down to water service authorities. Why is there no mention of it? When is this agency going to start coming into effect and working really effectively? How many shovel-ready projects does the department have right now as it stands? Because we're going to have another 3 years of speaking about project and the budgets that's there. How many projects does the department have right now that are shovel ready, that will work to alleviate the infrastructure challenges that we have in the water sector? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Kobe. I think Honorable Kobe mentions an important point on around issues of governance, and I think that's what we've probably have said since we started with the presentations, although we may have not used the word itself. But I suppose by and large, some of the issues that we've highlighted speak directly to the issue of governance and the current state of quite a number of provinces in as far as the decline is concerned. Chairperson Xolani is back. And I would like for him to then respond to those particular issues. And also, let me just indicate, in as far as the agency is concerned, I do apologize, Honorable Kobe, because the timeline for the full establishment of the agency is next year, June, July. I didn't want to necessarily mention it here, lest I be accused of giving information to the committee that will not materialize within this year. So I just perhaps thought I should put it on the back foot and not mention it at all. But it is there. You're quite correct, and it's specifically earmarked to do exactly that. So I want to then thank you for highlighting that. But we in terms of the implementation of the agency, it's only next year between June and July. So over to you, Xolani.
Thank you, DM, and my apologies, colleagues. I was cut off. But when it comes into skills development within the municipality, and I think you were clear in terms of the capacity with regard to the municipalities in Limpopo. But what we've got together with our colleagues at SALGA, we've got various training programs that we have developed, and we are able to take that training material and capacitate various municipalities. And at Indaba, again, the issue of cross-learning was discussed to say certain municipalities that are doing well, probably they should be learning or go and capacitate other municipalities. We need to encourage that as much as we can in terms of exchanging knowledge and capacitating the municipalities that are not doing well. But we've got various programs. As I said, we are working with SALGA in terms of that. We conduct training both at a technical and even at a management level. With regard to the project that are shovel ready, we do have a number of projects that are at a planning stage, and we can indicate in terms of that, in terms of the number and even per province to say this particular project is at a planning stage. We are finalizing the feasibility study or the implementation readiness study, so we can provide that. And I'm glad that DM on the previous one where it was requested for us to provide the projects or the support that we are supporting the municipalities in Free State and Northwest. We do have such information. We'll package it properly and send it to the committee within 7 days. Let me stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson, may I also then, just for purposes of making sure that there is a certain level of transparency, just ask Honorable Kobe, in terms of the shovel-ready projects, is she referring specifically to the ones of DWS as DWS in isolation, or also projects that we may be intervening in municipalities, for example, that we package those and maybe categorize them in that way and submitted in writing to the committee?
Honorable Kobe.
Chair, whether they are segmented or just overall given on a long list by the department, I think we'd just appreciate to know where the 156 billion over the 3 years will be going. And it would be nice to know which projects are there already ready to be rolled out. Thank you, DM.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kobe. Yeah, I think that's important. I think there was also a slide on Mark's presentation that outlined those key infrastructure projects that the department is embarking on. But I'm happy for us to package them, Mark. I don't know whether you want to specifically respond to those, Mark, or whether we can request that we submit those also in writing. Mark?
Thank you very much, DM. Certainly the reference to the specific projects on the slides can be elaborated in that regard. There's plenty more. That was really just a sample of what we are doing to address that, but we can provide that information. I think also, just whilst I have the floor, in terms of the interaction with the regions that the concern was raised, I mentioned that in terms of the SDG 6 program, we have a very elaborate process whereby the regional champions located in our regional offices also address or raise concerns where there are gaps related to the 8 targets, and they get fed into the SDG working group and captured within the gap and the intervention reports, which are rolled out in the master plan of the water resource strategy. So we've tried everything we can to make sure that no one's left behind, that all regions are covered, and that where there are gaps and requirements, then they are put into some kind of form so that it'll actually be captured in those particular planning documents for rollout. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister.
No, thank you so much, Chairperson. Yeah, I think those are the questions that we were due to respond to. I think let me not complicate issues for myself. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, well, I'm going to complicate it for you. She also once again asked about the funding gap. How do you see that? Although we have discussed that on the infrastructure agency that will be established, and then the poor planning. Anything on poor planning that she has mentioned that you would like to respond to?
Would that be on our side as a department or WSA's? I mean, we have to. I almost feel like a lot of the challenges, of course, happen at a ground level, particularly as it relates to WSA's. But let me check with DDG Zwane on that particular issue. Mangete?
Thank you, DM. Maybe I can ask Olani to respond on that. In terms of planning for projects at municipal level.
Yeah, it seems we're playing musical chairs now. Yes, can we get a response on this, please?
Apologies, Chair. Let me be quick on that. We, at a national level, you'll know that we've got a National Water Master Plan. And then we are developing what we call Provincial Water and Sanitation Master Plan. And what is expected again from the municipalities for them to develop their IDP, and all of those plans are being integrated so that we can be able to say, once we finalize the infrastructure project, then the sanitation project at the municipality space, they are ready to take that for reticulation. So we do meet at various level of spheres, national, provincial, and even at the municipality level. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. It creates a tick box exercise. So the department's got the plan, the municipality's got to develop their plan, and then it stops there. That tick box has now been ticked, but we still see municipalities polluting our rivers. So we've got to get another way of getting rid of this red tape or tick box exercises, Minister, to make the work that you are assigned to deal with much easier. There should be, and I think this is the last on this, there should be consequence management. People need to go to jail. Otherwise, we will, as members, as indicated, will sit here next year and discuss the same problems. And if we don't change the method in how we deal with these matters, we will not succeed in cleaning our rivers and streams. It is too easy for municipalities. They get away from this, and I know the legislation will now change. We've heard that a lot. But my fear is, even if we change the legislation, whether there will be a willingness from the department, if they change that, to lock up people if they pollute our rivers or making people sick in the communities for not giving clean drinking water. But that is just a comment from my side. Deputy Minister, Honorable Kobe, would you like to speak on this, or are you satisfied with the response?
Chair, I'm partially satisfied. I just need to know the role of the National Water Resource and Infrastructure Agency as it relates to the solutions that are proposed. That I understand that DWS is also, it has its own mandate, and municipalities and water service authorities also are their own juristic bodies. But I need to know or the necessity of the National Water Resource Agency, where it comes to fill the gaps, because that's what the agency was meant to do. We have Infrastructure South Africa. We have Public Works and Infrastructure that could also come in. But the department has created this agency, but I don't see solutions that are directed and coming from the agency. So that is my worry, that we're going to continue to, it's going to be musical chairs, as you say, Chair. It's going to be here, there, and everywhere. I need to know, do we have a coordinated approach that factors in this agency to solve the water-related and infrastructure problems that it is mandated to solve? Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Kobe, I can just mention to you that I had a discussion with the Minister last week in Parliament. We will amend our program to bring the department in to unpack this agency, because there was last week in questioning by Honorable Ramahila, there were some issues that was, that he had on the agency, and the minister indicated that they're more than willing to do a presentation and unpack just that agency, so that the committee and the public out there would understand better the working and what the need is of that committee. So I will have a meeting with Parliament staff to see whether there is a way that we can, within the next 2 or 3 weeks, have the department to unpack this whole agency for the committee. I hope you find that in order.
Much appreciated, Chair.
Mr. Bannister, you still had your hand up. Are you covered?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm partly covered there. I was just going to mention that from a planning perspective, this is in complement to what Kulani had said. each of the 144 WSAs have to develop a water service development plan, and they're not completed very well. We've only got about 17%, which have been approved by the council for implementation. And the DWS has a program to train and support the WSAs where there is a shortfall in that regard. So I think that answers one of the questions that Honourable Kobe raised. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Stats SA and the department, thank you for your presentations today. I know some of the questions that came out from honourable members is not in line with your presentation, but it is important for us to know that, or for the department and yourselves to know that there is a huge concern by members of this committee on the status of water and sanitation within the country, and we'll have to deal with them. There should be a very harsh meeting on penalties and the red tape that we have in the department when it comes to pollution and addressing municipalities on how they deal with the issues. But thank you very much for both the presentation. Thank you to the Deputy Minister that led the presentation. If there's no further questions from anybody, I would then adjourn this meeting. Any member that still want a last bite? It doesn't seem so. Colleagues, thank you very much for this meeting, and this meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Thank you
Chair.
very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm not Makaula, Mukaula.